Jeremy Crow, welcome back to the Buttersock Cult. You now have access to bonus content. You're watching Suits. I've never seen Suits. What's that about? Sadly, you can't stick around. It's okay. Hopefully we'll catch you next time. Sorry, I'm a little late today. I don't know, I ate dinner, I guess around, probably somewhere around 7:30 or 9 o'clock. And then I got tired. And I said, okay, I can't stream under these conditions, so I will take a nap. So I power napped. When you power nap under the appropriate star system, and the appropriate star sign, when Esquilius is in waxing waver, your REM sleep is amplified by at least 0.2%. So I was fucking sick nasty at a nap when people normally go to bed. It was robust. Suits ended because Meghan Markle decided to marry into the royal family and ruin everything. Yeah, it seems like that whole crew is a bunch of party poopers. Saw a tweet about 4 hours. You thought that's when I was going to stream? Yeah, I'm sorry. That was an emergency meme that I had to share right then and there. If I didn't get it out, I would explode. It would be kind of like holding in a fart, you know? You don't want to hold in a fart. David De La Rosa, welcome back. For 2 years, 24 months. Awesome 24 months. Let's read rocks. Hell yeah, dude. Thank you, David. That's crazy. It's a long time to stick around. What's up, Gabby? It's been a minute. Yeah, I've been good. Root beer, yeah. I wish I had a fucking root beer right now. I'd be sipping it. Have I played COD Modern Warfare 3? I have not, but I'm sure somebody in the chat has and can tell us exactly how mediocre and repetitive it is for the 9,000th time. Even though I always compare Call of Duty to like the Madden, you know, NFL Madden of shooters. But I will say, I was watching a review for Madden 24, because you always get curious. You're always like, you know, every like 4 or 5 years or so, the game has a bit of a jump in quality out of nowhere, because investors are like, what the fuck, we didn't make $1 billion on our return by releasing the same peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Cole Light. Cole, is your account also the, do you have 2 accounts? The Inspizia Videos one and the Cole one? Because you guys said the same thing about Chill's impression. Been listening since I was 19. I'm 26 now. Best stories on YouTube. Thank you. That guy's Sunny. It's crazy. And David De La Rosa with the 1 Buccarino. Thank you, thank you. Literally every sports game is the same. The only changes they make are roster changes. There really is. Back in like 2005, EA signed an exclusivity deal with the NFL to have the rights to like the rosters and the names and the teams and all that kind of stuff. And it ended up kind of ruining football games because there was never any competition anymore, like with NFL 2K. And therefore there was never like motivation for them to ever get any better, you know. But I did hear for EA that Madden was in like a make or break year on whether it was going to be good or not. So I don't flipping know. I hope it gets better out of nowhere. Park Rangers are creepy. We'll get ready to hear some of their stories tonight because that's what's on the docket. On Halloween, all I did was binge watch a ton of horror movies. I still feel in the mood for it, though. Yeah, it seems as if, though, I was not ready to end spooky season so soon. It just kind of ended abruptly. It came and went. I'm still in the spooky mood. Honestly, I could be in the spooky mood all the way up to Thanksgiving, man. I could be, you know, putting a little ghost outfit on the turkey. Oh yeah, Jacob Bowling, thank you for 21 months. This is Joel, you rock. Can't stay for the stream, but I'll have to join another live stream in the future. Take care. Thank you.
Mischievous dog.
And Terry King, welcome back for 18 months. Says, be right back. I think I had an accident. Just had another bird-brained bird try to commit slit over side of my window. No, that's a jump scare. Oh yeah, good eye. That's funny. Yeah, I feel like you see that actually a lot in horror movies. The jump scares of... Oh shit. Jacob Bowling with the 30 buckaroo says, hey Joel, you missed my 19th month donation. Fortunately for me, I haven't been in a very good mood. In fact, I've been in a foul mood all day long, but hopefully when I join another live, I'll be in a better mood. No worries, my friend. Thank you. And Tim Richards, thanks for the 5, says, a secret to a long life is smelling as many farts as you can. I'm going to start selling cans of fresh farts. I'll be a millionaire in no time. Yo, no cap for Rizzy, Tim. I think you're on to something. Wait, Joel, is that your voice on the thing? What do you mean, the thing? What's the thing? Oh, the donation sound? No, that's actually chills. Real chills. There's some Christmas horror movies. I might get adding those to my watch list. Yeah, but then you might end up on a watch list for good flicks. I'm on a government watch list. As in the government loves listening to the live stream. What's up, Jorge? What's going on? Only 41 likes, we can do better. Yeah, baby, click that like button. Click share. Also, I'm kind of stoked we're listening right now to Carbon-Based Lifeforms album called Seeker. It actually came out back in September, and I didn't know it existed, and Carbon-Based Lifeforms is a good group or artist. I don't know if it's two. I think it's two of them. You keep getting older. Do I? But Pradeep stays the same age. What's your favorite or one that terrified you the most horror story that you narrated before? Probably the steamroller. You can't forget that one. It is weird sometimes. I feel like more and more often lately, I like fucking think about something and then I get an advertisement for it on social media somewhere. And I know I've said that before, and somebody says like, well, that's because when you're in, proximity to other people's phones who have similar interests or whatever, or maybe you mention it in a conversation, it pulls that metadata and it advertises to you, etc., etc. And I get that, but I feel like this is like some like next level shit. Like you have like a random insecure thought that passes over your mind, and a couple days later, or maybe the same day, I'm not even sure how to describe it. Pradeep, the eternal Kite. Stephanie Bowling, welcome back for 14 months. It's been a rough day for me and the 4 children because Jacob has been in a bad mood. He's been fussy all day and it took it out on me. Jacob's a bad husband? What the heck? Jacob. What the fwick? Anyways, have you noticed that if you mention something while Google or YouTube, then later you see ads related to the thing you mentioned? Yeah, man, you don't have to mention it. You just think that shit and it fucking pops up. I haven't wrote any stories in a while. After self-publishing 2 books this year, I feel a lot of writer's block. Maybe a break will be in order. That's sick, though. Publishing 2 books? What the fuck? That's awesome. What are they about? Oh, yeah, I'll be your marriage counselor. The Bowlings. You guys should probably settle this in the racquetball courts. Or maybe on like a trampoline. Trampoline wrestling. You can literally look at your Google account and see that it records your voice to help the Google Assistant, of course. Yeah. Yeah, it is strange how much data is being collected on everyone. Just freaking an entire underground city of like servers out in Arizona, buried under the ground. Just everything you've ever said or did or typed or thought is just kept right there, ready to be used for your benefit and your security. Whenever they send our consciousness into space on the Ark. Remember you did ASMR and I sleep to it now? Oh, nice. You found the ASMR stuff? Heck yeah. We need to go back to house phones and pigeons. Yeah, I remember back before cell phones, all the way up to like 1970, everyone was really into pigeons. My mom loved using a pigeon. Sometimes it would carry her to the grocery store. What's up, C-Money? You hope your FBI agent is cute. Probably is. I don't know. I imagine if, like, at this point, anybody who monitors your constant conversation is probably looking for some type of, like, presentation. Like, you collect data on what people say, but you don't, you can't have an agent sit there 24/7, like they're some type of telemarketer just monitoring everything you say. Like, imagine if you had that job, listening to people like say their stupid DMs, or listening to their conversations over gaming and fucking just any dumb thing. You would go insane. So I feel like you would just need a computer to like collect that stuff, and if something presented as like potentially matching a profile, presumably you would have a sophisticated system that would be able to use all that data to generate those profiles or match something. Have you seen the red velvet eggnog now? Jesus, no, that sounds yummy. I might be getting some of that. Last year around the holidays, there was just like this pre-mixed eggnog, like alcoholic eggnog I drank that with my father, and it was good stuff. Hey Jacob, I just want to say I'm happy you're here, is what I'm trying to say. But there was a weird thing that happened where when I went to check my video analytics for the most recent stream, there was quite a few donations from yourself that were in the $30 amount, which is a lot of money. From the previous stream, and you must have donated $30. I don't know how many times, but whenever I went to there's you can see how much money was generated during that stream, and it said $55 in total, right? So my presumption is that perhaps the excess donation might have triggered something on your bank account or something over there that wasn't accepted. So I'm just gonna have to ask you, just kindly, because I do really appreciate the concept of being generous and all that amazing stuff, but just because sometimes 30, it kind of supposed to elicit a fun sort of reaction. If you're cool with just taking a break from donating this stream, just because it seems as if though there's some sort of either miscalculation on YouTube's analytics side, or the fact that it just maybe the bank marked it as a red flag or something and didn't go through. And I'm not saying, honestly I don't care about money one way or the other, but if the plan is to just continue to donate that much, I don't want you to get, screwed out of your stuff if it's not actually going through. So, just to save you the time and effort on that end, you can figure out whatever the situation is with that. But I just want to say I appreciate just your presence, that's all you have to worry about. Don't worry about donating. And we'll have a good time here tonight. All right, friends. Thanks for being here, guys. Click that like button. Click share. Be sure to go check out Carbon-Based Lifeform's other albums as well if you like that kind of ambient vibes. They did that with you on TikTok. Yeah, I presume, sometimes if people go ham on something, the bank is going to be like, hey, what's this? And, I don't want somebody to get into some sort of financial trouble or issues by donating the money. I really don't need, you guys being here being supportive. That's literally all I need. Like, it's just a mental, I mentally appreciate all of you guys, you know. Yo, random question, but some of your videos when your voice comes in telling us to become a member and the TV show Lost theme is playing. Yeah, that was my good buddy Robin. He's also my, you know, does visuals and thumbnails and all that good stuff. He's a huge Lost fan, the show. And, you know, I would, you know, I wouldn't be surprised if he snuck in some little bit of Lost Easter eggs from time to time. Hey, see ya, Gabby. Take care. But yeah, guys, thanks for being here. Chilling out. Sorry I'm a little late again. I don't know. We moved the clocks back. You know, we're getting into winter. Really not looking forward to it again. I don't know. I wish... Oh, there he is. What's up, Robin? Yeah, I don't know. Just been like mentally weird lately as soon as like it feels like we're getting towards winter. You know the deal. Less sun, etc., etc. Yeah, dude. What's up, Jen Sion? Two legends. PA moves clocks too. Oh yeah, I mean every state does, but I think there was something in like Western states back in like 2019 or 20 that I don't know, they were like trying to move legislation forward to get rid of daylight savings time or like keep the clock the same all year round. And yeah, I mean, that would be kind of sick. I really would like to not think... I mean, it is fun, like, in the spring when it jumps forward and you're like, holy shit, we're here. It's spring and it's longer days and it's going to get warm and blah, blah, blah. But when it hits winter, you're just like, oh, fuck. Every state except Arizona? Oh, wait. Okay, so it's only Arizona that doesn't do it? Interesting. It's gotta be so confusing. I don't know why there wouldn't just be like mandatory. Everyone has to follow along within the country. I don't know. Sleepy Guerrero, welcome back for half a year. Better, Jacob. It's no bueno going to bed like that. Personally, I've been waiting for the stream all day, so thank you, Joel. Yeah, absolutely, Sleepy. Good to see you. Thank you for half a year. That's awesome. And Sarah TR with the two says some banks are having issues transactions this week. Oh, okay. And Jacob with the 10 sister, I respect you more than anyone in the world. You're my friend and you respect me now. I support you in your streams, so I'll donate small amounts tonight to support you. Hey, no worries, my friend. No worries. I just don't want you to get, you know, something popping up in there that, like, you know, shuts down the account or something. You know, puts it on freeze or whatever. Alright, anyways, we got stories from park rangers tonight. We got 5 of them. Should be sick. One of my favorite topics. Robin's working on a banger thumbnail right now to fit the vibe. It's just going to be a picture of his asshole spread open. I don't know, he's done that a few times. I usually don't use that thumbnail. I'm just kidding. But make sure my mic is cleared out. My name is Roger. I'm from Minnesota, and I came across your YouTube channel at the beginning of this year. I'm a retired forest ranger, having spent the better part of 3 decades working for the U.S. Forest Service Oh, fuck. I'm like out of breath already. What the fuck? You know what? Maybe I'll wear this stupid fucking... Having taken a napped... I don't even know. Just need to open up my airways. Here we go. I have these like little plastic thing that opens up the nostrils, and you're supposed to wear it for like snoring, but it's really not comfortable, to be honest with you. I'm a retired forest ranger, having spent the better part of 3 decades working for the U.S. Forest Service Law Enforcement and Investigations Division. Since my retirement, I've had plenty of time on my hands, and over the past few months, I spent a lot of time... Oh, fuck, bro. I'm fucking tired and burnt out and dead inside. It's like a septum ring. Yeah, pretty much. Since my retirement, I've had plenty of time on my hands, and over the past few months, I spent a lot of that time listening to various anthologies that you've published. I think it's awesome that you publish the stories of regular folks like me, so with that in mind, I think I have a story that you might be interested in. It seems a little strange that I'm so excited. Fuck. I can't... I don't even know. I just feel like clogged up. I shouldn't have eaten rice earlier. Every time I eat rice, it just fucking makes me like clogged. Hey, Buttersock Co-Prophet, thanks for the 5 months. It seems a little strange that I'm so excited to tell you about this, as it's not exactly the kind of thing most people want to hear. I used to wonder how you get so many people wanting to share their bad memories with you, but after having thought on it for a while, I think I figured it out. These aren't the kind of things that we talk about. Fuck, man. Make sure maybe you're a little allergic to rice. I probably am. I don't know. Carb and make you stuffy. It does, dude. It's that, but I mean, like, it was like Thai food, so it's just like filled with oils and MSG bullshit, you know? And it knocked me out for 2 hours, so it's probably not great to eat that. I used to wonder how you get so many people wanting to share their bad memories with you, but after having thought about it for a while, I think I figured it out. These aren't the kind of things that we can talk about around the dinner table in polite company, and I've never had a single person ask me in the flesh, what was the scariest thing that's ever happened to you? People don't want to know, at least not the kind of people I've ever associated with, but at the same time, these are things that, for whatever reason, we want to share with people. And much like your channel's viewers, I'm pretty apt to lend my ear to a story that's a little darker. And so, without further rambling on, this is the story of one of the truly terrifying moments in my time as a forest ranger. For the vast majority of my career, I was posted in the Voyagers. Make sure I'm saying that right. Voyager. For the vast majority of my career, I was posted in the Voyageurs National Park up near the Canadian border. Since the park is split into... Oh my god. I just can't, man. I can't right now. I don't know why. My brain is so fucking foggy. Since the park is split in two by a series of lakes, it's popular with fishermen and kayakers. But these lakes are also populated by many small islands, many of which are popular camping spots. People come up to the VNP to get away from the city and get some privacy, and it doesn't get much more private than your own personal island, really, does it? Well, one afternoon I got a call from a chief ranger asking me to do him a little favor. He'd gotten a call from the International Police. He'd gotten a call from the International Falls Police Department, IF being a small border city between 20 miles. He'd gotten a call from the International Falls Police Department, IF being a small border city about 20 miles to the west, after an officer over there had received a missing persons report. Some lady's husband had gone on a camping trip with an old friend and failed to return after being due. Some lady's husband had gone on a camping trip with an old friend and had failed to return after being due back that morning. My husband was to head over to their regular camping spot on a place called Wolf Island to see if they'd moved on or not. The ranger team at VNP is probably one of the most amphibious in the country, definitely the most waterborne in the region. Half of our job consists of policing the waterways and making sure all fishing and boating is within regulation. So not only do we have ready access to kayaks and motorboats, but we're very comfortable operating them. So when I got the call, I headed to the Ash River Visitor Center, which was where we docked our boats. But then just as I'm prepping the boat to sail over to Wolf Island, I get a second call from the chief. The IFPD had reached out with an update, one I needed to be informed of immediately. According to the chief, this wasn't just a case of two fishermen having overslept after too many Miller Lights. The missing man's son had been in touch, and this time it was to warn law enforcement that not only was his father most likely armed, but had been acting extremely erratically. Extremely erratically? Hey, Jacob, thanks for the 10, man. Do I have COVID? I mean, I did at one point, I think, because I had, it was really strange. I got sick, but I didn't have any symptoms other than just, chest congestion, which is so weird. It was like I just woke up and had shit in my lungs, and I was like, well, that's kind of weird. It was almost like being on the tail end of a sickness without having any of the other parts of the sickness. But I think I'm pretty well done with that. I just, I don't know. Waking up from a nap and trying to get right into it is fucking stupid. It's like, I don't know, just I've been eating shitty lately. I've been trying to eat clean for so long, and then all of a sudden now I'm on like a bender of just eating terrible, and it's not good for me. The missing man's son had been in touch, and this time it was to warn law enforcement that not only was his father most likely armed, but had been acting extremely erratically prior to the departing for the camping trip. This is not what I had been hoping to hear when I'd heard that there was an update, but I was more than equipped to deal with the situation. Seeing as I was on the law enforcement side of things, as opposed to working solely at the visitor center, I had pretty much all the same options as your average police officer. But that didn't mean that I wasn't feeling a sense of apprehension regarding what I might run up against. 9 times out of 10, incidents in the park are resolved quickly and peacefully, but as you can probably guess, it's 1 in 10 that keep you up at night. So after prepping the boat, I sailed west for around 20 to 25 minutes until I spotted Wolf Island. After using my binoculars to observe the island from a safe distance, I can make out a slight plume of smoke coming from its eastern side. I could have really done with some kind of bullhorn to call out the missing camp. What the fuck? I could have really done with some kind of bullhorn to call out. I could have really done with some kind of bullhorn to call out to the missing camper, but I didn't have the good sense to bring one. So I was forced to bring my boat right up to within about 20 or 30 feet of the shore before calling out using nothing but my lung power. I called out once, and then twice, and after the third call received no response, I decided to make landfall in order to get a visual on the campfire, which presumably had been started by our missing camper. I brought the boat up a little closer, hopped overboard, then waded my way ashore, calling out to our missing camper all the while. I could smell the campfire by this point, along with whatever was cooking on it, so I was doubtless within earshot of whoever had been Oh my god. I could smell the campfire by that point, along with whatever was cooking on it, so I was doubtless within earshot of whoever had been tending to it. But since no one called back, and since I didn't see anyone as I walked up the beach, I figured whoever had made camp had moved on. Yet as I walked further onto the island in search of the source of the smoke, something caught my eye. For as long as I live, I'll remember this in photographic detail. It runs in my head on its own sometimes, like someone pressed play on a remote control in my brain. I saw something falling out of the corner of my eye, and when I looked, I saw it was a raven, landing to join some of its brothers and sisters. But then I saw what it was landing on. There was a man sat in a camping chair, not quite upright, but not all the way slouched either, with a big old hole Start a new job next week. Nice, dude. What kind of job did you get? No holiday blues for you. Gonna keep your mind busy working. That's when I kind of realized, like, today I was like scrolling for a solid like 20 minutes watching. In the UK, there's like this ratter dog. Like this dog that they just use to like kill rats and shit like that. You know, it's just this. It's interesting actually. It's like very small. I forget what breed it was, but it was like surprisingly muscular for how small it was, but kind of more in the shape of a wiener dog. And you know, its entire existence was, you know, just kill rats. And it seemed like it really enjoyed what it was doing, you know? And to me, I'm just like, maybe that's what humans are, really. We're just working dogs. You know, because you see the comments down below and they're like, that dog is living every dog's dream. Jack Russell. It was kind of looked like a Jack Russell, but it had like a specific name. Hey Jacob, thanks man. But once again, you can put it on pause right now, you know? But I'm kind of just like, you know, dude, that's that is kind of what I feel like we as humans need a lot of the times, is just to be able to kill a bunch of fucking rats. There was a man sitting in a camping chair, not quite upright, but not all the way slouched either, with a big old hole in the upper near portion of his skull. What the fuck is this? There was a man sitting in a camping chair, not quite upright, but not all the way slouched either, with a big old hole in the upper rear portion of his skull. One of the ravens was pushing its beak into the hole while a few others fought over whatever had leaked onto the ground. The body accounted for one of our missing campers, but I didn't have to wait long to find the second. Lying motionless next to the campfire was what remained of the second missing camper. Someone had made the effort to cut off his legs, I'm guessing after he was deceased, and had worked on cutting them into small sections before placing them onto the fire. What had been smelling on the way in hadn't been the camper's late lunch. It had been a section of the second camper's leg, sizzling away on the dying embers. I guess the guy in the chair hadn't the heart to find disposing of his camp. I just cannot fucking find a rhythm with this shit. It makes me so fucking annoyed. I guess the guy in the chair hadn't the heart to finish disposing of his camping buddy, and had decided to let nature take its course on both of them. We never did find out why it happened, but we did figure out how. The killer had invited his quote-unquote friend on a camping trip to their regular spot. He hadn't hidden anything from his wife, or anyone else for that matter, which led us to believe that his decision to kill his camping buddy was either a spontaneous one, or that he had planned to simply kill him before taking his own life as a way of avoiding any consequences. He obviously wanted to conceal what he'd done, at least at one point we believe he had. But then, this is where another argument for the spontaneous murder theory comes into play. Personally, I don't believe that he'd taken the time to research just how arduous the disposal of a dead body can be. There was no accelerant at the scene, so I don't think he'd planned to burn his friend's body, and when it became obvious that it was going to take way longer than he'd thought, and that law enforcement might well come looking for him, or his dead friend, before the disposal would... Holy fuck, is that one sentence right there? That's like so fucking long, dude. It's like a whole ass paragraph. Is this a long pig story? I don't think he was eating him, but I guess all stories are long pig stories. Lil Killer Gaming, what's happening? Good to see you. You can do this so consistently and perfectly. Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah. I mean, like I said, I'm just a dog trying to kill a rat, you know? It's the only fucking thing keeping me focused. It's because you told me to lose weight. Yeah, it fucking got into my head. Made me want to eat more pizza. There was no accelerant at the scene, so I don't think he'd planned to burn his friend's body, and when it became obvious that it was going to take way longer than he'd thought, and that law enforcement might well come looking for... Dude, please, please, please. There was no accelerant at the scene, so I don't think he'd planned to burn his friend's body, and when it became obvious that it was going to take way longer than he'd thought, and that law enforcement might well come looking for him, or his dead friend, before the disposal could be completed, I think he decided to just check out there and then. There was a somber mood among the park staff for a while after that. As far as I knew, nothing like that had ever happened before, and nothing like that happened again for the remainder of my career. As you can probably guess, national parks aren't exactly high crime areas, and at the VNP, the most intense things generally get is... The most intense things generally get... Oh. Maya Garcia with the 5 says, just showing you support from Chi-Town, Chicago. Sir Joel, love you. Keep up the awesome work. Thank you, Maya. Good to see you. Thank you for the support. As you can probably guess, national parks aren't exactly high crime areas, and at the VNP, the most intense things generally get is catching up to a speeding boating party so you can tell them to slow down. So to have something so terrible happen right under our noses, it had a real strong effect on our mood during the weeks that followed. Sometimes I think about what happened in that guy's head to make him want to murder one of his best friends. Like I said, we didn't hear about any affairs or betrayals or anything else that might cause a man to temporarily go crazy. It's all just one big mystery. And like so many other of life's mysteries, I think I'm a lot more comfortable living in blissful ignorance. As I cracking my knuckles, I do that from time to time. Alright, holy crap. Story 2 of 5. Dale and Tucker versus Evil. I never saw that, and I remember that was on Netflix for such a long time. Oh, you know, I actually did watch a show this weekend. I think it was yesterday. I started watching season 2 of Invincible on Amazon. And I was sad to see that they only had one episode for the second season. And I guess what they're going to do is like do weekly episodes through November. So like 4 episodes through November on a weekly release schedule. And then continue to release them into 2024. And that's cool and all, but I kind of wanted to binge watch all of it. But I guess at the same time, maybe they want to, like, you know, give themselves some wiggle room probably for season 3 and onward and all that kind of stuff. You heard Invincible was meh. I liked it. I thought it was good. You know, I would say between episode 1 of season 1 and the last episode, I wouldn't say there was necessarily filler episodes. I thought it was good in the way that they gave time for the characters to develop. You know, but at the same time, there were times where it was a bit slow mid-season for that. But I also, looking back on it, I feel like there was a lot of stuff they had to set up. There's still a writer's strike still. Oh, right. I guess that makes sense too. I should watch Midnight Mass. It's so good. Okay, I'll write that down. Midnight Mass. Okay. Check that out. Joel did not show himself on X. No, that was just a meme. I stole it from, like, it popped up from, what's that one, like The Onion or some shit? Where it was like guy with giant head and giant bulging head wins again playing trivia or whatever. Basically saying like a super smart guy who knows all this stuff in trivia won again. But then I said 5 minutes into No Nut November, just like, you know, insinuating that all the additional cum was coursing through his brain and stuff. So I should watch Lost. You know, when Lost first came out, I was in like 9th grade and I would watch it with my parents. We watched it for a solid 2 seasons. And I feel like it was around season 2 that I recognized that, like, there were starting to build up more questions than give answers. And I just, like, couldn't keep up with it anymore. Sarah with it says Yellow Jackets is a seriously good show, must watch. Yellow Jacket, what's that about? Yellow Jackets. My daughter is a very big fan of yours, and as part of her... My daughter is a very big fan of yours, and as part of her birthday present, she asked me to write up a story that I told her last Thanksgiving regarding my days volunteering with the park service. I promise it's not the only present that she's getting this year, and I'll admit to being very taken aback when she first proposed the idea. But while very unusual, it was impossible to refuse, so here I am at her request. I grew up in St. Louis, then moved down to Knoxville after I enrolled at the University of Tennessee. Then, during the summer between my freshman and sophomore years, I signed up to a seasonal volunteer ranger program at the nearby Great Smoky Mountains National Park. Although my career aspirations involved sitting behind a desk, I'd always thought it would be cool to be a park ranger. Maybe it's the masculine ideal of working outdoors, rescuing wounded animals and becoming one with nature along the way. So when I heard that I could basically pay the part... I'm sorry, Joel, please forgive me. No, I forgive you. I was just joking. I don't care. I don't care about nothing, brother. I don't care about nothing. Lynn with the 2 says, got a dip. I'm a little sick, but I'll be back Tuesday. Good night. All right, see you, Lynn. Take care. Thanks for being here. Hey, Patty, what's going on? So when I heard I could basically play the part of 1 month... What? So when I heard I could basically play the part of one for a month, oh my god, it's so confusing. So when I heard I could basically play the part of one for a month while wearing my very own campaign hat, my interest was piqued. I got in touch with the right people, arranged the dates, then spent 7 long months looking forward to it. But when I got there, I found my work to be anything but exhilarating. In essence, the seasonal volunteer program was little more than a way of securing vacation time for the grossly understaffed ranger teams. And what's more, we were never trusted to do anything that required any real experience or expertise. This meant that around 60% of the time, myself and the other 2 volunteers were staffing the park's visitor center. The other 40% of the time, we were only trusted to do things like basic administrative tasks or boundary maintenance. I don't know what else I was with. Fuck. AST Sarah TR with the 2 says YJ's or Yellow Jackets soccer team playing crash trauma. Oh, okay. Interesting. Is it trying to like play off of like that rugby team that crashed their plane and it was eating each other? Have I seen Interpretation? No, what's that? I haven't seen nothing, man. I can't even see. I don't know what else I was expecting. National parks have go-to keep... Please, bro. National parks have go-to keep their books in order. Oh, have got to keep their books in, okay. As soon as I find like a thing, I just get fucked. I don't know what I was expecting. National parks have to keep their books in order, just like the rest of us, but I most definitely preferred boundary maintenance over anything that involved being cooped up indoors. Boundary maintenance was a very fancy name for the Forest Service gave. Boundary maintenance was a very fancy name the Forest Service gave to fence checking, and as you can probably guess, all that involves walking long sections of boundary fence to make sure they're in a decent state of repair. Walking those boundary fences was probably the closest I got to living my ideal ranger lifestyle, but it was also one of those hikes that I came across someone I still think about, often, even after all these years later. I was out near a place called Cosby Creek, which is on the eastern boundary of the park. This area is of particular importance during the boundary checks, as there's an old graveyard named Tritt Cemetery out of that. Winter in Ohio, yeah, dude, fuck winter, dude. Who are some of my favorite YouTubers? Probably Dream. I love his chin. No, I'm just kidding. I don't know. YouTubers are stupid. I'm stupid. We're all stupid. We're all just like average people who are just made of dirt. This area is of particular importance during the boundary checks, as there's an old graveyard named Tritt Cemetery out that way, so we obviously don't want the wildlife digging up old bones or otherwise desecrating the place in some way. I made sure all the fences on the cemetery were intact and then continued eastward along the fence line for maybe 10 to 15 minutes, when suddenly I saw someone moving through the trees up ahead of me. The second I laid my eyes on them, I had this moment of bizarre doubt, where I thought that there was no possible way that what I was seeing was real. Fuck, man. You love winter? It's the only season where you feel normal? Interesting. Where you live at? The second I laid my eyes on them, I had this moment of bizarre doubt, where I thought there was no possible way that what I was seeing was real. I'm not a doctor, so I couldn't tell you how much blood a person can lose and still be functioning, but my God, the girl who softly sobbed as she walked barefoot through the trees must have been running on fumes. She was completely without clothes and with big patches of her skin missing, revealing all this clotted blood and dried gore underneath. Almost every part of her, from her hair down to her toes, was covered in blood, and I was stunned that she was even on her feet. I immediately rushed into action, rushing over to her as she collapsed into the dirt. I took off my shirt, used it to cover up as best I could, then picked her up and carried her back to my truck. I guess it was a stroke of good fortune that I found her so close to where I'd parked, but I was still fit to collapse by the time we got there. I knew that there was an urgent care up in Newport, which is around 12 miles or so. Come on, bro. 12 miles. I knew there was an urgent care up in Newport, which is around 12 miles or so north of Cosby, so I drove as fast as I possibly could after loading the girl into the backseat of my truck. I don't think I said anything to her aside from, "Don't close your eyes, you gotta stay awake." She kept her eyes wide open the whole way, but she never made a sound either. She just lay there, curled up into a ball with my shirt over her, staring at nothing until we finally made it to the urgent care center. I know they're not necessarily equipped to deal with emergencies like that, but I didn't know what else to take her. SJ with the 150, thank you. I know they're not necessarily equipped to deal with emergencies like that, but I didn't know where else to take her. So after administering some initial treatment, I was told the girl would be taken over to Sevierville. Hey Jacob, thanks for the 10, man. No worries. And Mogumi Muse with the 2 says it's okay, you got this. Thank you. No, sorry, I don't mean to be a downer. My brain is just rotted with scary stories lately. Completely rotted from the inside out. Sevierville. So after administering some initial treatment, I was told the girl would be taken over to Sevierville, where there was a general hospital equipped with a dedicated emergency room. And that's where my role in the whole thing ended. I asked if I could be of any more help, but was told that the best thing I could do was go back and tell the chief ranger what had happened. This was way back before cell phones, and I could have used the hospital's payphone to let the team know where I was, but by that time, I figured it was better to just drive back, change out of my bloody clothes, and tell everyone what had happened face to face. When I walked into Ranger HQ and the chief and my coworkers saw the blood on my clothes, they knew something terrible had happened. They thought it was me that was hurt at first, and I had to tell them something I've only heard said in movies before. "It's not my blood," I told them, and then I launched into the explanation where I'd been and what had happened. The chief took notes the whole time. Seeing as we had full jurisdiction, the only other group that could legally push us out of the way would be the FBI or something, unless we called in there to... Will the FBI even operate in Canada? I mean, maybe they would help. Terry King, thank you for the 5 gifters to C Money, Rafael Pineda, Shelby, Britt, and Lexi B. Thank you, Terry. Appreciate you. And Megumi Muse with the 2 says, my brain and mouth disagree often. It happens. Yeah, it's so, I don't know what it is. It's weird trying to get, those two, because it's, just multiple variables. What's written on the screen, whether or not my brain can interpret it right. and whether or not my mouth will physically cooperate sometimes too. And Jackie Chan, thank you for the gifter to LR8897. Thank you, Jackie Chan. Your birthday's in 4 days. I'm in early labor at the moment with my first baby. I didn't know the month could get better, but now I have a membership. Thank you. Hey, nice. And congratulations ahead of time for the new baby you're soon gonna have a very close birthday with, which is crazy cool.
Mischievous dog.
And Shanus with a 1. Thank you. 2, Bridget Wagner Cooper. Thank you guys. What's up, Carrie? Good to see you. And yeah, if you've been gifted, be sure to check out the bonus content playlist for show. Unless we called in their help or they stepped in without us asking, it would be up to us to investigate what had happened to the girl. And that's where things got really weird. Obviously, we needed to talk to the girl that I'd found in order to establish what had happened to her. But when the chief contacted the hospital and spoke to the relevant doctors, we found out that she hadn't said a word. Not just about what had happened to her either. She wouldn't say a word to anyone. This didn't strike any of us as particularly unusual. The poor girl. Aaliyah Poison with the gift or 2, Bosley Boy. Thank you, Aaliyah. And Megumi Muse, welcome. Oh, man. And Batsy Girl? Goodness, guys. Going ham jam. To Jessica Thurston. Thank you very much, guys. Yeah, this is a gift avalanche. Where tis the season. You have to go into your settings on YouTube to accept gifts. It's turned off by default. Interesting. Hey, Buttersock Call Prophet, thank you for the 5, my friend. Good to see you. The poor girl had no doubt gone through an extremely traumatic event, meaning she most likely wouldn't want to talk about it until she'd sufficiently calmed down. The doctors told us to check back the next day, but also that they'd be in touch if there were any changes. So, that's what we did. We waited until the early afternoon of the following day, then called the hospital again to see if the girl had started talking. She hadn't. She wouldn't talk to doctors, wouldn't talk to nurses, and we could be sure as hell that and Jacob with the 5 gifters, 2. Going Through Life, Carrie Ashton, Neko Skrilla, Pawe, and Nikki. Thank you, guys. Thank you. The Giftorama, the Gift Apocalypse.
Mischievous dog.
She wouldn't talk to doctors, wouldn't talk to nurses, and we sure as hell could try, but the doctors didn't think that she talked to us either. The chief handled all the calls, but seeing as I was the one who found her, he asked me to join him on the ride to the hospital in hopes that seeing me again might push her to talk. I got the word on my radio, and when I did, I stopped what I was doing, resource management so it wasn't all that urgent, and then drove back to HQ to join the chief at his truck. We talked about how the investigation might unfold on the drive over to the hospital, completely unaware of the fact that there wasn't going to be any kind of investigation at all. Because when we got to the hospital and went looking for our nameless victim, we found the nursing staff in a minor panic. It took us a while to work out what was going on, but when we did, shocked doesn't even begin to cover it. The hospital had lost our victim. A review of their security cameras showed a man dressed in hospital scrubs, pushing a wheelchair through the hospital's main entrance just after 1:15 p.m. He wore some kind of ID clipped to his chest, somehow talked his way past reception, and then it headed straight for... Megumi Muse, thank you for the gift to Destiny Glenn. Thank you, thank you. What's the voice in the background saying? It's saying, mischievous dog. You're all becoming mischievous frogs. He wore some kind of ID clipped to his chest, somehow talked his way past reception, and then headed straight for the room where our victim was kept. There, he loaded her up onto the wheelchair, then simply pushed her out of the hospital without any attempt to stop him whatsoever. Obviously, it was a huge breach of the hospital's standard of practice, but without any idea who our victim or her apparent abductor was, we had almost no means of recourse, except one. Seeing as we had a potential abduction on our hands, we actually did call in the help of the FBI. Obviously, our main concern was that whoever had taken the girl out of the hospital was the same person, or at least part of the same group of people that had put her in the hospital in the first place. We didn't have the resources to go chasing after the guy, but the FBI did, so after we officially transferred the investigation over to them, it was pretty much out of our hands. We hoped that that meant the investigation might actually progress, but about a month later, when our chief checked back with the FBI contact, we learned that the case just wasn't a priority for them. We had expected to be contacted regarding the formation of a joint task force, which is standard practice whenever the FBI coordinates with local law enforcement. But after a review of the evidence, some desk jockey somewhere had decided to... Hey, Jacob with the 10 gifters. 2, Yubi, Brent Forte, Catbird, Kenny, Falk, Bia R, Joss Sauce, James, Gearhart, Fonsolo, Benito, Bedroza, Starlia 1111C. Welcome, my friends.
Mischievous dog.
But after a review of the evidence, some desk jockey somewhere had decided the case wasn't worth pursuing. They weren't keen on allocating resources to a case where, potentially, the only charges would be impersonating a healthcare professional. I'm not a lawyer, so I couldn't tell you the kinds of punishments a crime like that might get you, but I know it wouldn't be nearly as much as assault or kidnapping, neither of which had any real evidence for. If the girl had talked, if she said anything that was pertinent to the case, we might have something to work with, but we didn't. All we had were theories and assumptions, none of which were comparable to hard evidence. And so, that's where the story ended. If the girl came forward to make a criminal complaint, then our case was back on. But until then, or until our mysterious fake nurse committed another crime someplace, then we were all out of options, and it was better to just let it go. I'm not saying I was okay with that. If it were up to me, I'd have chased that case. Hey, Liz Harrington with the 2 says, thanks for your videos, they keep me calm. You're welcome, Liz. Good to see you. If it were up to me, I'd have chased that case to the ends of the earth to find out what the hell happened to that poor girl. But it wasn't up to me. I wasn't even a real ranger at the time, and when my time was up, I went back to summer vacation, then back to my studies come fall time. But that doesn't mean I forgot. I've never forgotten what that girl looked like, or how it felt to see her limping through the trees, hearing that awful, exhausted sobbing sound that she was making. And when I felt like the time was right, I decided to share this story with my daughter. I know that might seem strange to you and your listeners, telling my teenage daughter something so frightening and strange, but I feel like there's a lesson in there that I needed to teach her. When driving back to HQ after dropping the girl off at the urgent care, I was under the impression that the ranger team, along with whatever other law enforcement agencies got involved, would fight to bring her attackers to justice. I don't know if I mentioned it already, but at one point, the idea was floated that the girl had been some kind of... How much does membership cost? I think it's like a little over $5, including tax or something. But just so you know, if you do it over on Patreon, you get early access on that tier too, because there's like a $1 tier over there. YouTube recently added a option for early access for members on YouTube, but I'm like nervous to use it because if all of the... Because YouTube is so heavily based on, you know, momentum views. So if, like, say I upload a video 24 hours before, or, you know, an hour, a couple hours before, and then a decent 100 or more views come through prior to the video releasing, would that end up affecting the trajectory of, you know, view velocity, as they say, of the current video, and like therefore not be suggested out to newer people as effectively? And that's why I'm almost like nervous to try it, because YouTube also has this really cool feature. I mean, it's a cool feature, but the fact that the algorithm is so finicky about shit, you're just like, everyone on YouTube is always so, you know, superstitious with what they do and how they do it on YouTube, because you just don't want to fuck something up. But then there's also this cool feature that they have on YouTube called premieres, and there is nothing more than I would love to use than the premiere feature on YouTube. You've probably seen it on some channels where it says like, this is releasing tonight at 7. You know, you can look, it's not out yet, but you can look forward to it. But the way that Premiere works is like, it has a great little, like, that feature where it shows you what's coming out, which I think is cool. The fact that you can see the thumbnail and be like, ooh, this is going to be, you know, when this comes out, I am going to set my notification timer and I'm going to watch it, you know. But when it comes out in like a weird like live stream fashion, and not everybody wants to watch it that way, you know. Like, you might show up an hour late and the video is like about to end, and then you might like click off because it just wasn't like an experience that's like specific to you, you know, even though you could obviously rewind it and watch it from the beginning. But like sometimes it can just be like a non-consistent experience for the viewer, and therefore affect your typical views that you would get on it. So I wish they would give some sort of option where they would show, you could have the option to show scheduled videos that are coming out as if though it's like coming soon, you know, similar to how they do with the premiere, but not have the premiere features of like it playing like a live stream or something. I don't know, it's fucking strange. So would it be better to be a patron or member on YouTube? I'm planning to commit next payday. You know, it's up to you. So like on Patreon, you get early access, right? Because there's a $1 tier and a $5 tier, but if you do the $5 tier, you get both. Now, that means that every new video you get early access, you'll get the audio, but you'll get only the audio. There's no music in the background, no transition sounds. Not that those are like crazy important, but sometimes people like their product to feel like more polished, or whatever you might say. And with YouTube, it's a little bit different, because you'll get the bonus content, but sometimes it comes out a little bit later on YouTube versus Patreon. But on YouTube, you also get like the little green name and all the emojis during the stream, etc., etc. Not that that's like crazy, you know, big deal breaker or whatever, but and then sometimes on YouTube, whenever I release like a narration, it's a little bit more like, if I had time to edit it and put the sounds and stuff in the background music, it sounds a little bit more polished, versus the Patreon, which is usually, depending on if it's been pre-edited or not, just kind of the narration cleaned up. Caroline W., welcome with the big W to the Buttersock cult. I hardly ever tune into premieres, but it can be fun. Mostly I don't want to sit through the ads. Oh, there's like ads in premieres? Or wait. Or yeah, I guess that is how it goes, right? Where like, I guess that's a good point too. I've never actually watched a premiere before, but imagine if somebody had like a promo, an advertisement sponsorship in a video, and you can't skip it because it's playing out like everybody's watching it like some sort of watch party, and you can't skip it. And that's, a minute to 2 minutes of someone reading about some hair loss treatment, and you're like, I don't give a fuck about that. That would not be very cool. I don't know if I mentioned it already, but at one point, the idea was floated that the girl had been some kind of... I don't know if I mentioned it already, but at one point, the idea was floated that the girl had been in some kind of accident, maybe falling down a rocky hillside, had torn her clothes off, someone suggested. But all of them? Every scrap of clothing just so happened to be torn to shreds, but somehow she wasn't killed on the way down. I don't buy that, not for a second. She had to have been attacked by someone or something. Now that's obviously a very frightening thought, but whether we like it or not, monsters are always going to exist, and they'll exist as they've always done in a variety of different forms. You can always expect bad things to happen in life, but what you don't expect is seeing the very people that you thought were charged with your very protection acting like they just don't care if you lived or died. There might have been a time in this country where justice was a man with a fast horse, a shiny badge, a well-oiled pistol, and a warm heart. But nowadays, justice sits behind a desk. Justice wears a suit and a tie, and justice has a budget. And whatever heart it once had has grown cold, callous, and uncaring. The creator doing an ad read on a premiere, you can't skip it. Yeah, that would probably piss everybody off, because sometimes, I know it's so funny, like in my videos, whenever I do an ad read, there'll be people that'll be like, I pay for YouTube Premium to avoid the ads, and now I gotta listen to this. I'm like, bro, have you never scrolled forward in a fucking YouTube video before? There's literally timestamps in the description. If you don't want to watch an ad, just move forward till you start hearing stories. Like, I don't know. It just like blows my mind. It's like I'm not doing a fucking 30-minute ad for BetterHelp, or you know what I mean? Like, it's just fucking click forward. Justice always looks both ways before it crosses the street. Justice always finishes its vegetables before it gets to have dessert. At least your ads don't last literally 8 minutes like true crime people. Yeah, it is kind of funny. Like I'll listen to, the stand-up comedian like Tim Dillon, his podcast or whatever. And a lot of the times, I don't know why, but sometimes he'll like speed through his sponsorship reads, which is cool. You want to get it out of the way, get it done with. It is what it is. You're trying to make money, blah, blah, blah. But then, like, other times he'll sit there and go on, like, he's trying to do almost like a off-the-cuff, like, sort of joke with the ad, which may be what he's instructed to do. But his off-the-cuff, like, rambling pertaining to the ad might not necessarily be super funny because it's sort of forced, and then it lasts like, like you said, 8 minutes of him just going on. And obviously I can just skip forward, but it is what it is. I really do try to keep my ads shorter, but like I can't really like speed runs, narrate my shit. So they end up being about like 2 minutes long while still trying to cover all the shit that I have to talk about. Hey Van, what's going on? Tim Dillon's ad reads sound like he hates his sponsors. It is funny. It's a good presentation. I'm surprised he gets. I mean, he's making bank everywhere. It's funny. I kind of like his like honesty, how he just generally doesn't really give a shit one way or another as long as he gets paid. He's like, I'll fucking push whatever agenda you want as long as you get me to be the host of the Tonight Show or something. And I appreciate a man who is honest about their desires. The story I'm about to tell you is strange all on its own, but to understand why it continues to haunt me long after it occurred. After it occurred. The story I'm about to tell you is strange all on its own, but to understand why it continues to haunt me long after it can. The story I'm about to tell you is strange all on its own, but to understand why it continues to haunt me long after it occurred, I have to fill you in on a little background information. I tied the knot with my now ex-husband. That sounded weird. I tied the knot with my now ex-husband in 1987. We were madly in love with one another and had every intention of staying together until we were old and gray. But the truth was, we wouldn't last 5 years. We had trouble getting pregnant, so we went to a fertility doctor to do some tests, and that is how I found out that I was incapable of bearing children. It didn't seem like the end of the world, not at first anyway, and discussed both the possibilities of adoption as well as living a child-free lifestyle. I thought our marriage was strong enough to survive something like that, and it turns out that I was wrong. When he filed for divorce, I was heartbroken, and I never really experienced true heartbreak until then. If he'd had said from the get-go, "Look, babe, I can't be with someone who can't have my kids," then at least I'd have more time for... If he'd have said from the get-go, "Look, babe, I can't be with someone who can't have my kids," then at least I'd have more time for it to sink in and for me to get over it. But it was how he raised up my hopes before dashing them that's what hurt more than anything else. I couldn't bear to be around him after that. He wanted to be an amicable split, but I just didn't have it in me to remain friends with him. I guess that must make me seem pretty immature to some people, but I just wasn't emotionally equipped to deal with something like that. I left town, moved back in with my parents for a few months, then set about deciding what I wanted to do with my life. It might sound silly, but I'd half expected my role in life to be a mother and homemaker. I know that isn't exactly shooting for the stars to some, but it was all I ever really wanted. I wanted a simple life, a happy life, and it took me an embarrassingly long amount of time to realize that I could be happy being something other than a housewife. During that time, when I was finally able to go outside without bursting into tears at the first sight of a mother and child, I spent a lot of time hiking woodland trails. The peace and seclusion helped me put my mind back together again, but the more I did, the more I realized something about myself. I could quite happily spend the rest of my working days walking around the woods, in relative peace and quiet. Then, when I mentioned that to my dad, he very casually suggested something that changed my life forever. "Why don't you apply to the Forest Service?" he asked one day, and I remember trying to think of a reason why that wasn't possible. I couldn't picture myself being a ranger, but back then, I could hardly picture myself doing anything at all except crying myself to sleep every night after hours upon hours of just terrible television. But then the more I thought about it, the more I realized that There were no reasons I couldn't be a park ranger. Since I didn't have a bachelor's degree, I'd have to intern for a full 2 years before being offered a full-time position, but that didn't bother me. I sure didn't have anything else going on for me at the time, so I decided to just go for it. Now, having grown up in Garrett County, Maryland, I sometimes pictured myself walking the Appalachian Trail during the warm summer months, wearing one of those Smokey Bear hats. But when it came time to applying for internships, there was only one place accepting applicants, and that was Acadia National Park up in Maine. I'd never pictured myself living that far north, and I wondered how I was going to survive the winters up there. But it also offered a new start in a new place, far from the painful memories I wanted so much to leave behind. And so, in the late summer of 1992, I packed up my things and moved up to the small hamlet of Seal Harbor. I moved into a small rental house on a street called... Liz with the 2 says, I really have bad anxiety. Your videos help. Oh, I'm glad we can help, Liz. I moved into a small rental house on a street called, and this is not a joke, Whoville Way. God damn it, dude. I never did figure out if it was some sort of nod to Dr. Seuss or something. None of my neighbors had a definitive answer, but it was nice, a quiet place to live, and it made getting... Come on, bro. I never did figure out if it was some sort of nod to Dr. Seuss or not. None of my neighbors had a definitive answer, but it was nice, a quiet place to live, and it made getting to and from the park every day much easier. I interned for 2 years, completed all the necessary training, then by the fall of 1994, I was a fully fledged member of the Arcadia Ranger team. Wait. Arcadia? Or Acadia? Because earlier they said Acadia. That shit pisses me off, bro. Wow. That's way up there in fucking Maine. That's crazy. That's very remote. Oh, fucking Christ. I interned for 2 years, completed all the necessary training. Then by the fall of 1994, I was a fully fledged member of the Acadia Ranger team, badge and all. There was a presentation ceremony, which my mom and dad traveled up for especially, and I experienced feelings of pride and self-belief that at one point I'd never have thought possible. I considered it a huge achievement, and there's no denying how happy it made me, but I still felt this sort of baby-sized hole in my life, one I knew that I'd never be able to fill. Now cut to about a year later, to June of 1995, and I was completing a land inspection near Rocky Hill. Now cut to about a year later, to June of 1995, and I was completing a land inspection near a rocky hill named Connor's Nubble. Once I was done, I turned around and started walking the 2 miles back to Park HQ, but as I got closer to the shores of Eagles Lake, I decided to take a shortcut between 2 trails to save me some time. It wasn't a well-walked-out section of trail, and I'd never made the shortcut before, but I knew the park well enough to know that if I worked my way through the undergrowth, I'd come out on the opposite trail and have a much easier hike back to HQ. So that's what I did. I turned off the trail and was walking through the trees when, suddenly, something caught my foot. I didn't see the thing at all, meaning I was so caught off guard that the stumble almost sent me crashing into the dirt. So after calling whatever it was a mother lover, I decided to kick away some shrubs to see exactly what had almost taken me out. I figured it'd be a rock of some description, and if it was possible to do so, I planned on digging it up and tossing it to one side to ensure that no one would be tripping over it again. Some might call that a little extreme, but it becomes second nature to make the park a safe place as Morning, Joel. Just got off the plane from UK to Spain on coach to hotel, and you're going to make this journey much more fun. Nice. Seems like a lot of people from the UK go to Spain, which is pretty cool. Is Spain sort of like the Florida of the UK? His voice, though. Ooh. My hero, Acadia. Megumi Muse, don't forget to hydrate. Good idea. Thank you, thank you. Oh, man. Hey, Leslie, take care. He's reading this cold. Yeah, I'm just kind of... I have to record for a video, so I'm just kind of reading cold as I go and just stop and start where I need to. Some might call this a little extreme, but it becomes second nature to make the park as safe a place as possible for visitors and coworkers alike. One thing you learn as a forest ranger is that a lot of things are completely out of your control, which then teaches you to always act on the stuff you can control. Anyway, after stamping my foot down to find the thing that had tripped me, and then kicking away the shrubs around it, I was surprised by what I saw. It couldn't have been a rock. The shape was way too unnatural, and after wiping away some of the soil around it, I caught a glimpse of something that looked a lot like a seam. If it had a seam, then it might just be some kind of box that someone had buried there sometime in the recent or distant. Recent or distant? It's so distant. Albert Watson, what's good, dude? Not much, just recording some spooky woods people stories. The woods folk. You ever hear of the Disney movie Raya and the Last Dragoon? I never knew it existed until I have the Happy Meal toy. Never heard of that. Raya and the Last Dragon. Well, I never heard of that. It's like 3D animated 2021. Weird. Is it good? Is it like Mulan? Yeah, it's another rock creature story. I searched up wild RP with live filter for Red Dead Redemption RP content, and this is what came up here. Now I have no idea what's happening, but I'm here for it. Hell yeah, that's what I like to hear. You know, it's like one of my favorite types of I love Red Dead. Red Dead's fucking awesome. Like, sometimes I'll watch these clips of this guy who does like, it's so silly, but it's like John Wick style, like shooting but in like Red Dead, and I don't know what, I think he has like some sort of mod that makes it so it just like auto targets on and like kills people in like one shot, but he'll try to make it almost like a cinematic experience of like shooting and punching and knocking people out and stuff, and it's pretty intense and fun. I was always curious if they had Red Dead RP stuff, because, you know, for as much as the GTA Online stuff, I feel like they almost like completely abandoned the Red Dead Online thing, but I feel like there could have been so much potential there, especially for if they would have done, God, imagine if they would have done the Undead Nightmare 2 for Red Dead, I would have shit my pants, because there was so many times where there was like very spooky scenery that you would come across in Red Dead just from how pretty it was, and you just kind of in your head was like, you just knew that it was coming. There was something deep in yourself that was like, there's guaranteed no way that they're not going to do Undead Nightmare 2. This looks so good not to. And the fact that they didn't is like a crime really against humanity, and they should go to jail forever. SJ Curtis with the 2 says, hey Joel and Pradeep, you get me through my drives. Heck yeah. Thank you, SJ. And you're just like, you're like drifting down a mountain. You ride and die to see and heard the next Let's Read video. Hell yeah. Ride or die, baby. Did you ever hear of Darkness Prevails? Oh yeah, Darkness is great. Great person. Great narrator. Great record. Where even am I right now? Oh, here we are. And if it had a seam, then it might just be some kind of box that someone had buried there sometime in the recent or distant past. But no matter what it was, I didn't have the time nor the energy to stop what I was doing and dig it up. So instead, I tried to mark out the spot as best I could, stamping down more of the undergrowth to make the clearing more visible, then made my way back to the HQ. I mentioned the thing in passing to one of my coworkers, and although she wasn't exactly shocked, she did show some interest. I know for a lot of you, the first thing that comes to mind is some kind of buried treasure, and with Northeast Harbor boasting some summer residents such as the Rockefellers no less, it wasn't out of the question that something valuable had been buried there. But even so, no one was rushing to go dig it up. I mean, I didn't even really know what it was. So while the box remained of interest, digging it up wasn't a priority by any stretch of the imagination. A few days went by, then one afternoon I found myself with a few spare hours. But then, rather than finish early for the day, I decided to grab a shovel, head down to the shortcut near Eagle Lake, and dig up the box to find out exactly what it was. It made for hard and sweaty work, but after maybe an hour or so of digging, I was finally able to see that, yes, it was a box, no bigger than the kind that you'd buy shoes in, and it looked like it had been buried there for a long time. I heaved it from the dirt, dusted it off, then set about pulling away the rotten twine from the latch where a padlock might have otherwise been. I'll admit to being quite excited at the time, and it didn't once occur to me that it could have been anything sinister. But when I opened the box and lifted up a rotten piece of cloth away from whatever was inside, I gasped and slammed the lid shut after catching just a glimpse. It wasn't gold or silver or jewels, nor was it a murder weapon from some decades-old murder, as one ranger had suggested with a chuckle. It was a skeleton. The tiny, newly formed skeleton of a departed newborn baby. I didn't touch anything else. I just ran back to HQ to tell people what I'd found. Soon, almost everyone on duty that day was down near Eagle Lake. Then not long after, so were several state troopers and a whole forensics team. But before they all got there and sort of cut off the... Red Dead RP is tight. I just got onto the good Red Dead Redemption 2 RP server myself. The game is kind of an RP Dreams game. RP's dream game in my... Oh, okay, nice, yeah. Yeah, just the atmosphere of that game would be ideal for that, for sure. That's freaking sick. I always really wanted Rockstar to really, like, tighten down their shooting. Like, you know, maybe even do first person or something. And just make, like, a tactical shooter that could compete with, like, Call of Duty, because... just the physics of the shooting in Red Dead and GTA has always been so fun that if they could have figured out some sort of actual competitive shooter that like controlled really well, that would have been so nice. I'm surprised they actually didn't jump into that market or try to make, GTA Online or something more competitive. Does Pradeep like boxes? He does, yeah. Anytime I put one down, you'll see him. You'll look over and he's just in there investigating, waiting to be packaged up and sent back to the glue factory. Cyberpup with the one. Thank you, Cyberpup. Mr. Nightmare's great, but he doesn't do any long stories to go to sleep to. I'm actually surprised he doesn't do like compilations from time to time of just, a bunch of videos mixed together to make a nice long hour video just for people to consume. Hey kitty, speaking of kitties, Mr. Nightmare himself, Pradeep. Pradeep is Mr. Nightmare, in case anyone doesn't know. Okay, what am I talking about? Soon, almost everyone on my duty was down at Eagle Lake. Okay. Mr. Nightmare used to make king comps, doesn't anymore. Interesting, I wonder why. Soon, almost everyone on duty that day was down near Eagle Lake. Then, not long after, so were several other state troopers and a whole forensics team. But before they all got there, and cut off the... Dude, what's wrong with me on this? But before they all got there and taped the scene off, our chief ranger looked inside the box just to see for himself what was in there. Like I said, I only got a glimpse, but I saw enough to know what I was looking at, whereas the chief, he took a long, hard look at that poor little thing, long enough to see the things I hadn't. I couldn't bring myself to look at it again for a long time, but when the chief said the skeleton looked all wrong, he was right. I hadn't never seen a baby skeleton before, so it wasn't like I was an expert. But all who said it agreed that the skull seemed way too large, and that the arms seemed way too long. As one of us put it, the poor little thing barely looked human, but it was because the genetic testing came back positive as being entirely human in origin. In the end, we pieced together a very sad chain of events. Sometime between 1920 and 1930, some unsuspecting mother gave birth to a heartbreaking, disabled child. There was a chance that this child died of natural causes because there were no signs of any trauma on the skeleton, but that didn't rule out the possibility that someone had taken it upon themselves to personally end the child's suffering. Then, after the child was gone, someone placed it in what would have been at the time an expensive felt-lined box, then buried it deep in the woods where no one might have ever find it. Oh, fuck, I can't read. I think they would have buried it a little bit deeper. They haven't listened to Corpse Husband in a while. Yeah, does he even... What's the last thing he's made? Is it just music now? Corpse Husbando. Choking my friends. I can't stop winning Squib Game. Oh yeah, music, videos. Oh, 2 weeks ago, Disdain. Sort of like a rock song. That's cool. Oh, that's fun. Then, after the child was gone, Someone placed it in what would have been at the time an expensive felt-lined box, then buried it deep in the woods where no one might ever find it. Why they might opt to do that in lieu of just giving the child a proper funeral, I have no idea, but the reason couldn't have been a good one. Now cut to almost 80 years later, and some slowly growing tree root had pushed it further and further to the surface over time, until just a sort of nub is sticking above a Cut to almost 80 years later, and some slowly growing tree root has pushed it further and further to the surface over time, until just a nub is sticking above ground. A little nub that I just so happened to have stumbled over. Seeing as the child's body was found on federal property, we were able to enlist the help of the FBI's DNA analysis unit down in Quintico. Oh my god. Quintico. Quantico. We need to send it to our behavioral science unit at Quantico. Seeing as the child's body... I ran out of air. Seeing as the child's body was found on federal property, we were able to enlist the help of the FBI's DNA analysis unit down in Quantico, like I think I already mentioned, and we were hoping that we might get a match on a distant relative that had a file, but nothing came back positive. This little kid had no name, no date of birth, and its only possession was the small improvised coffin we found in it. Fuck. This little kid had no name, no date of birth, and its only possession was the small improvised coffin we found it in. We also heard from the FBI that the child's large skull, which they called macrocephaly, was probably the result of a genetic disorder such as Weaver's or Soto's syndrome. From what I can understand, conditions like those are relatively easy to treat today, but back then, some poor kid born in bad circumstances, they wouldn't have nearly the same chances. It all makes for a heartbreaking story. Even our most probable theories were nothing but speculation, but no matter which way you can cut it, whatever happened to that child had been simply awful. And that's not why the whole thing has haunted me for all these years, not the story on its own anyways. Instead, it's been this. Sometimes in my darkest of moments I feel like that poor baby was my own. I feel like it was a strange kind of destiny that brought me to that shortcut and had me stumbling over its makeshift coffin. I know that probably sounds like I'm losing my mind, and it's definitely not an idea I've ever discussed out loud really with anyone, but it really is the way I feel sometimes. I'm not able to have children, but what I was given was the chance to being I'm not able to have children, but what I was given was the chance to bring peace, in the form of a proper burial, to a child whose real parents were unwilling or unable to give them one. And in doing so, I think I've been able to get just a taste of how boundless and unconditional a mother's love can be, and for that, I'll always be grateful. Wow, that's just pretty crazy. Pretty crazy. Did I notice the extra hour we got? Kinda. Obama. Just that meme of like Trump where he says Obama and it like plays like the lavender town music from Pokemon. I don't know why that shit gets me like every time. One of your favorite comedies is The Wedding Singer and White Chicks. Yeah, those are some good ones. Is this the last story? No, we got this one and then we got a true crime story. Have I read 1984? I do believe I have. I know most of the sort of plot of it. And it's pretty scary shit. Pradeep wants some butt pats. What does Obama mean? I don't know. I guess he just said Obama, but like incorrectly on stage one time and it became a meme. Hey, happy birthday, Sonny. What's happening? You can't hear anything? Maybe if you reset? Looks like everything's good to go on the technical side. I think. Obama. Test. Yeah, we're good. Ain't the man in 1984 constantly horny for the girl or something? Yeah, he definitely is, for sure. And he's like angry about it because he hates that the girl in the story is like so adamantly supporting of like the state political apparatus, because she's like just repeats all the state party lines and turns people in and shit, and he hates her for that, but he wants to fuck her so badly. It's such a fun I don't know, it's just such a funny concept because it's supposed to be like so serious. Lost in the Mood, welcome back for a whole year. It says 12 months, time flies, love this show. Thank you, Lost in the Mood. It's crazy. We've had quite a few interesting milestones for people tonight. 1 year, 2 years, 6 months. The fact that my whole English class read it together is crazy. How come? Was it like, or like just the sexual undertones or whatever of it, I guess. I don't know, like I really think that like most people are capable of like contemplating a lot of like a wide range of like story concepts and stuff, and like this idea of like banning books from school or like keeping them out of school because reasons, it's always weird to me. I don't know if 1984 has been one that's been like targeted, but it's just so silly because then you can just, if you really want to read, you can just read it outside of school anyways, but it's just odd. They never required Orwell or Hemingway at my high school, so I tried them on my own. I tapped out halfway on both, to be honest. That's fair, too. Yeah, I know that some people say that the Orwell can be pretty dry. I don't think I've ever read any Hemingway, to be honest with you. Can you tell my kiddo to go to sleep? She's 4. Bedtime. Nighty-night. Get your... Oh, dude, it's so sorry, I'm about to swear, but it's so funny. My buddy's daughter's 3. It's so funny. She says, I want my gucka, my baba, and a tablet. Like, I don't know why it's so fucking funny, dude. Like, just saying, like, the baba is the bottle, right? It's a bottle filled with milk. And then her gucker is her, like, what's that thing? Like, the thing you, what the hell is it called? You suck on it. It's a fucking, like, little, simulated plastic teat, you know? That's what they call it. It says that on the box when you buy one. You buy packs of 12 of them. Binky. Yeah, fucking Binky. It's a little Binky. And then her tablet. I don't know, it's just so funny to think, like, 3 years old and she's already got, pacifier. Yeah, she's got her whole, like, everything she wants figured out right there and then. She wants milk, like a comfort, just something to, milk, the Binky, a blanket, and some fucking YouTube on the little thing. I don't know, dude. It's just so funny to me at, like, that age. You can just kind of, what you want. And you will have it. I want my baba, my gucka, my tablet. The fucking tablet. And it's so funny, too, like, watching her on the tablet. Because she doesn't even, like, really, like, what is she even clicking on? It's just, like, next thing. I'm looking over, she's watching, like, North Korean propaganda. I'm like, that's all right. I guess that's it. That's what people are into these days. Generation Balfa. Do I have friends who have kids already? Sometimes I feel like I'm missing out because I'm 31 and still looking for that nice special girl. Hey, man, yeah, whatever. The thing is, keep it in mind, but just, you got to tell yourself that you're cool too, You don't need another human being in your life to feel some sort of validation. And in fact, a lot of people get together, have the relationship, and then it fucking sucks, So maybe you should just, like, count your blessings for the free time that you have and the sleep that you get and the fact that you're not miserable, Some people are fucking miserable, bro. Do I have kids? I have no kids that I know of, right? No, I'm just kidding, but just Pradeep. I'm a crazy cat boy. So I was listening to your other park ranger stories, and I wanted to send mine in too. I hope you don't mind if I send this to a few of my other favorite channels as well, and hopefully that means you'll get to mine first. I'm medically retired from the United States Forest Service, but I was a ranger at Caniksu? Grass is always greener. Exactly, yeah, that's how the thing goes. Like, grass is always greener on the other side. But then you also have to, like, say is that, I saw, like, a stoic little philosophy tidbit of the grass is always greenest where you water it, So it's like, grass is just always going to be better where you put time and effort into it. No matter how good someone else's life is, your life is only ever going to be your life. So you got to put your best foot forward to make your life good for you. You can't sit there and long for other people's existences because you quite literally can't have their existence because you're not them. But you could emulate it by putting the work that they put in to get to that point, So every direction in life that you end up on is a manifestation of the decisions you've made in the past. So just tomorrow or today, hopefully today, you decide to make a decision that benefits future you. Also, how the fuck do you say this word? Caniksu National Forest? Oh, it's in Idaho. Oh, Kanixu. Sick. Thank you, Alex in photo and video. Appreciate you. And the next Tony Robbins, who's that? I feel like that sounds familiar. Tony Robbins. Oh, God, that guy's terrifying. For some reason, I feel like he's gonna, like, open his mouth and, like, eat me. He looks like Jaws from fucking James Bond. For some reason, his, like, I feel like his saliva is just like pure testosterone juice, just dripping. Oh, you make one wrong move, and I will throw you in there with the rest of the souls I've consumed. Sorry, I don't even know the guy, but I've seen him pop up on YouTube Shorts and stuff, and it's just like, I wore a suit every day of my life, even when I was homeless. It doesn't matter how much money you make, it's how much you can convince other people that you are important until they give you free shit. He does kind of look like he has superpowers. But like evil ones. Alright. Sorry. Kanixu. Do an impression of the Chills guy. I can't. I'm medically retired from the United States Forest Service, but I was a ranger at Kanixu National Park for 7 years between 1985 and 1992. Kanixu is up in the Idaho Panhandle, less than 50 miles from the Canadian border. Think forests, mountains, and lakes in the summer, then a carpet of snow and ice in the wintertime, with a Kootenai. Man, how the fuck you say this shit, bro? Kootenai, alright. Think forests, mountains, and lakes in the summer, then a carpet of snow and ice in the wintertime, with the Kootenai River to the north and Lake Pend, Oriole in the south. Oh, fucking Christ. Pend, Oriole, is that it? My brother in Christ, how do you say this? What? Orai. I feel like I want to say Oriel, but because that sounds... Oh my god. Lake Pendorai. I mean, you presume it might be a French pronunciation since it's close to Canada. Pulling out my gat with the Rizzler. Okay. Ohio Skibbity. Think forests, mountains, and lakes in the summer, then a carpet of snow and ice in the wintertime, with the Kootenai River to the north and Lake Penn, Oriel to the south. Everything else is a lot of ridges and valleys, and on the last day on the job, I was walking through one of those very same valleys. I was performing my regular duties, minding my own business, when suddenly I experienced what felt like prime Mike Tyson punching me on the right side of my hip. It spun me, but the force of it also took my legs out from under me, and as I fell, I heard the crack of a rifle coming from up the valley somewhere. My first thought was that it was an accident. It might seem crazy, but you'd be surprised the kind of mistakes hunters make when they're itching for that first bag of the season. It's why we have so many regulations in the first place. I couldn't see the shooter, so I started to call out, "Don't shoot, I'm a ranger!" One hand putting pressure on the bullet wound at my hip, and the other waving wildly back and forth as if to say no, 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 no. I expected someone to emerge from behind the tree or to stand up and reveal themselves before running down the valley in horror, but instead, the shooter fired at me again. I don't know how they didn't hit me. I was sat right there on the forest floor, but when I saw the dirt explode just inches in front of me, I instinctively rolled behind the only cover I had, which was a rotting log barely long enough to cover my whole body. Believe it or not, I still couldn't believe whoever was out there was deliberately shooting at me. I just couldn't imagine why someone would want to do that. Who in their right minds would be willing to open fire on a forest ranger? I tried calling out again. "I'm friendly! Stop shooting!" A few times, and the shooter responded by putting a bullet into the log I was hiding behind. Somehow, it didn't penetrate, but depending on how much ammunition they had, they could just blow the log apart, then blow me apart once they had a clear line of sight. Only then did it really sink in what was happening, and only then did the solution become obvious. Before rolling onto my front, I made sure my legs were still working enough to run, then began some... I just want to be your Sigma, your Ohio. For the Wazla. Pradeep, I need you to lay down, my brother. He's just like so obsessed with constant attention. He cannot go a frickin' second without getting his head patted. He's crazy, dude. Can I say what's up? What's up? Why does a chill guy talk like that? It's his accent. He's from a very specific part of Canada. Because I remember seeing like videos of him with his like cousin years and years ago, and they actually all have accents like that, which is very interesting. And I don't know. Sometimes people just be having different voices. Before rolling onto my front, I made sure my legs were still working enough to run, then began to sort of aim my body in the direction I'd parked my truck. The shooter didn't fire, and that seemed to scare me even more. He was just watching, waiting for me to make a move. If I stuck my head up and they were still there, waiting to take a shot, I was dead. I had to do something to make them flinch enough to at least miss if they took a shot, and since all I had at my disposal was my sidearm, that's what I used. I fired off a few rounds over the log after rolling onto my side, then got up and sprinted off through the trees, firing wildly behind me as I ran. I know the shooter took one last shot at me. I heard the crack as the bullet flew just over my head, but I was somehow able to run far and fast enough to break his line of sight and make it back to my truck alive. Since Ranger HQ was way down in some French bullshit, god damn it. Joni, welcome back for 3 months. What's up? What's up? Just like vomiting as you say it. Actually, that'd be so funny if someone's just at the toilet like throwing up because they drank too much, and then you just like walk by them and go, "What's up?" And then they just like in between dry heaves they go, "What's up?" Okay, how do I say this silly little French word? Cordeline? Oh, cordeline. Alright. Got some hella loyal members. I really do. You guys, the fact that you stick around for some people 4 years. I think Cashy, I don't know if she's been in here in a while, but I think she's been here the longest, since like 5 years of streaming. It's freaking crazy. I sound so much happier, please. Yeah, I don't know. I just needed to wake up. I was cranky. Do you watch How I Met Your Mother? I did when it first came out. It's actually so fucking funny. The fact that like the show when it first came out was like, yo, it's bro code, bro. Yeah, it's bro code. I don't know why. It's just like this like type of very specific to its time like type of cringe. Cordeline. Sounds like a type of syrup. I need my gucker. I need my gucka, my baba, and my tablet. Since Ranger HQ was way down in Coeur d'Alene, I drove to the emergency room Sandpoint instead. Hey, Lost in the Mood. Thank you for the gift or two. Jessica B. Thank you, my friend. How old's my channel? August of 2014. Believe it or not, almost 10 years this year. It's crazy. Since Ranger HQ was way down in Coeur d'Alene, I drove to the emergency room in Sandpoint instead. It's a long story, but I was only able to notify one other ranger regarding my injuries, and it was she. It was she that had done it. It was she that stopped Frankenstein's monster. It's a long story, but I was only able to notify one other ranger regarding my injuries, and it was she that relayed the information back to Ranger HQ while I drove over to Sandpoint. My biggest fear was passing out at the wheel due to blood loss, but as a doctor later told me, I've gotten extremely lucky regarding where the bullet had struck me, as well as the path that it took through my hip. Any further to the left, and I probably wouldn't have been able to run, and any further down, and it risked severing my femoral artery. If that had happened, I wouldn't even made it to my truck, let alone the hospital. With the park being federal land, the FBI actually joined in our ranger team in scouring the park for a potential shooter, but by the time they got there, the person who tried to kill me was long gone. The bureau. Yeah, bureau. The Bureau took the matter very seriously and interviewed me extensively, mostly as I recovered from surgery in my hospital bed. They had dogs running all over the park for weeks looking for boot prints, bullet casings, you name it, but they didn't find a thing. The best that they could do was tell me the kind of rifle that had been used to shoot. At me, which was a Remington Model 700. But during the final interview, one agent shared one of their prevailing theories with me. They couldn't rule out that my attacker was some kind of crazed hunter who suffered a psychotic episode and took a few shots at me. But that being said, there was one angle the task force was particularly interested in working. Just a few months before I was shot, a team of U.S. Marshals approached a cabin over in Boundary County. They had arrested. Oh my God. They had an arrest warrant for a guy named Randy Weaver, but during their approach, they ended up shooting the guy's dog, and then his son. One of Weaver's friends then opened fire on the marshals, kicking off an 11-day standoff in which a police sniper shot Weaver's wife. This guy was wanted on firearms charges, so the marshals thought that he had a whole arsenal of machine guns stashed away in his cabin, and that's why they went in like it was a war zone, and how they ended up killing 2 innocent people. Randy Weaver ended up getting millions in compensation from the government, but before that, the whole situation created a media firestorm and pissed off a lot of very violent people. And that's where the FBI agent I talked to figured it tied into my case. It was just speculation, but he and some of his fellow agents believed that since I was a representative of the federal government, some wacko with a hunting rifle figured I was a legitimate revenge target for what came to be known as Ruby Ridge. A few years later, that psycho who blew up the federal building in Oklahoma City said Ruby Ridge was the thing that drove him nuts. And those are my words, by the way, not his. The FBI never caught the guy who shot me, and as far as I know, they're still out there, proud at having hit back at the Fed or whatever crazy bullcrap they've brainwashed themselves with. And who knows, maybe they regret it. Maybe they'd apologize if they knew they could get away with it. But I can't say it's one I'd ever accept. Not until I can afford that second round of hip surgery, anyway. You're listing your classes when you graduated. I never graduated. They let me go early. They said this guy needs to go do YouTube. All right. Well, we got one more story. It's a bit of a doozy of true crime. We're cruising, we're bruising. But I'm probably gonna take my... Oh man, it is a doozy. God fucking damn it. Alright, but I'll be back. I'm gonna grab my magnesium to help me sleep later. This one's about Eloy Campillo Perez. So we'll get to that when I get back, and I will be right back. BRB. Okay. I hath returned. Robin said he sent the park ranger now. We're going to do a live reaction. Let's see. Hell yeah, brother. That's awesome, actually. I love the, color scheme is fucking sick. Yeah, and there's a fucking Wendigo. Oh, man. Yeah, it's gonna be baller. It's gonna be a baller-ass thumbnail. Sometimes I get more excited about the thumbnails than the actual stories. Like, in the sense of... I don't know. I guess I'm just a visual kind of guy. There was a super chat while I was away. Oh, shoot, Faceless says, my dad tried to use his dad's death from his kids. Luckily, I only developed low empathy because of him and not ASPD. Alright. Well, Faceless, good to see you, my friend. Okay. So, Pico de Gallo National Park, or no, Pico de Europa. What the flick is that? Picos de Europa. Land Sand Witch with the two, says Joel. Let's hear the different accents you can do. Great record. Great record. Great record. Just that one. Whatever that one was. I don't know. That's me though, baby. Cantabria? What is this place? Cantabria. Gotta say it. Man, I really hope I can learn how to roll my R's one day. That sounds so much more authentico. If enough people ask, will I do a feet reveal? Yeah, I'll show my feet. All you freaks want to see them. See my little hogs. See my tootsies. Okay. Picos de Europa National Park. The Picos de Europa National Park is a mountainous nature reserve in the northern Spanish region of Cantabria. The park attracts around 3 million visitors a year who come seeking its verdant forests, crystal clear lakes, and majestic snow-capped mountains. However, each of these visitors is issued a stark warning, as the Picos de Europa are known to be every bit as As the Picos de Europa are known to be every bit as brutal as they are beautiful. During the winter months, freak snowstorms can send temperatures plummeting into the mid-minus. Joel, just say professor in the best accent you can and try to roll the R in that word. That's how I learned. After the teacher told me I would never be able to. Jesus. Why do teachers say negative stuff to people? Professor. No, I keep wanting to sound like a purring cat, but it just doesn't feel right. Professor. Roll. Professor. I don't know, I just can't touch it. You need to just touch it, but I just can't be touching. During the winter months, freak snowstorms can send temperatures plummeting into the mid-minus 30s, resulting in an extensive list of fatalities and missing persons. The park is also home to the Cantabrian brown bears. Make sure I'm saying that right. God fucking damn it. Cantabrian. Cantabrian. The park is also home to Cantabrian brown bears, whose population exploded following a ban on the hunting of the species in the early 70s. The bears aren't known for their aggression towards humans, but along with the wolves and wild boars the park is also home to, they can prove a deadly threat to those caught in the wrong place at the wrong time. Yet Cantabria, I really can't tell if I'm saying that fucking right or not. Cantabria. Yet Cantabria isn't just famous for its wild, natural beauty. It's also the place where a decades-long mystery was finally brought to a close. But like so many other similar instances, the revelation... God, I sound like my words are slurring. The revelation... Profess older. I don't know, bro. I'm never gonna be able to do it. Rofos have ridges. Rof. But like so many other similar instances, the revelation raised many more questions than it answered. Wait, did I miss something? But like so many other similar instances, the revelation raised many more questions than it answered. Back in 1945, 31-year-old Elroy Campillo Eloy. Jesus Christ, Eloy. So many. You learn something new every day. Every day. Wait, what's going on? Eloy. Eloy Campillo Perez. Antonio Banderas. I know. I don't know. I do not know. I just can't. Some accents I can like emulate, and sometimes I can kind of emulate it, but whenever I really have to like know how to like quickly tap the R roll or actually roll the R's, it just doesn't feel right. Ruffled have reaches. It's easy. I guess it's easier when the first letter is the R, but if the R shows up in the middle or towards the end, it just doesn't, you know. I don't feel like Puss in Boots at that point. Campillo? Oh, Campillo? Campillo Perez. Eloy Campillo Perez. Alright. Jesus Christ. Back in 1945, 31-year-old Eloy Campillo Perez was employed as a forest ranger at the Picos de Europa National Park. He also happened to be the elected mayor of the small nearby town of Sontre. Jesus fuck, the whole fucking thing is gonna just be this, bro. Me stopping every second to find how to say something. Sotres. See, that guy rolled his R for that. Sotres. I just can't hit it. Sotres. I can't do it. Sotres queso de cambroles. I don't fucking know, bro. Holy shit. Cabrales. What the fuck? Sotres queso de Cambrales. He also happened to be the elected mayor of the small nearby town of Sotres, which is nationally renowned for its queso de Cambrales, a kind of blue cheese which is matured in the many limestone caves present in the surrounding mountains. But Eloy's life was anything but peaceful or happy. Between 1936 and 1939, Spain had been scorched by the fires of civil war, and by its end, fascist dictator General Franco had declared himself the victor and ruler of all of Spain. With the surrender of anti-fascist forces in the face of a unified far right, the Civil War may have officially come to a close, but for much of Spain's Republican resistance, the fight was far from over. They took refuge in the last of the country's wilderness areas, melting into the forests and mountains whenever pursued by Franco's forces, and the region of Picos de Europa was no different. Many of the resistance fighters were sheltered in the park where Many of the resistance fighters who sheltered in the park were known to Eloy all his life. Some he'd shared a classroom with during his formative years, others were blood relatives, meaning there's no doubt that Eloy had a degree of sympathy for them. However, given he was a mayor of Sotres, However, given he was mayor of Sotres, Eloy had certain obligations to his fascist overlords. Essentially, he was stuck between a rock and a hard place. He could betray his country, or betray his friends, both of which would result in his death. So instead, it seems Eloy attempted to remain as neutral as possible. He paid just enough lip service to the regime to avoid falling under suspicion, while remaining tight-lipped regarding the location of anti-fascist guerrillas in the Picos de Europa. All that mattered to him was keeping the people of Sotres safe. One of fascist Spain's primary sponsors had been Germany during that time, but following the Red Army's rush at Berlin and the collapse of one of the fascist... Man, I don't know. I can't say like fucking Nazi or Hitler, or the stupid fucking video gets marked Like, literally anytime I do, like, fucking historical shit, shit just gets marked. One of fascist Spain's primary sponsors had been Germany, but following the Red Army's rush of Berlin and the collapse of Germany's narcocratic nightmare, the future of Spanish fascism was brought into doubt. With his stranglehold on Eastern Europe assured, Joseph Stalin declared the global revolution would continue indefinitely, fanning the hopes of Marxist insurgents around the world. The guerrillas of... Damn, I'm actually kind of nervous about including them. I don't know. Let's go back. Let's take a look, shall we? I'm trying to remember. Which fucking one was it? I don't know. There was a recent video where I touched on something political towards the end, and then it just like... I think it was the shocking confessions. Like in that one, we talked about the guy that killed someone in the Middle East or whatever, and that video got kind of like stunted growth. And then the 4 disturbing prisons from around the world. We talked about the prisons from China with the Uyghur people, and that, seemed to like stun its growth as well and its reach. And I just feel like anytime I do any sort of like historical shit, especially one that mentions like Nazis or just, words that like pop up in YouTube's algorithm that might be considered controversial, it's like, I don't know. The guerrillas of Picos de Hierro, following Germany's... Wait, where the fuck was I? One of fascist Spain's primary sponsors had been Germany, but following the Red Army's rush of Berlin and the collapse of Germany's narcocratic nightmare, the future of Spain's fascism was brought into doubt. Fuck, man. And the collapse of Germany's narcocratic nightmare, the future of Spanish fascism was brought into doubt. With his stranglehold on Eastern Europe assured, Joseph Stalin declared that global revolution would continue indefinitely, fanning the hopes of Marxist insurgents around the world. The guerrillas of Pico de Gallo. The guerrillas of Picos de Europa were no different, and following the German surrender, began immediately stepping up the intensity of their operations. They ambushed units of the Spanish Civil Guard with ever-increasing frequency, and even went so far as to seek out ways of producing explosive material. This was an extremely risky move, and in trying to involve the people of Sotres in their pursuit of volatile chemicals, the guerrillas risked bringing the full force of fascist retribution down on the small mountain town. This was something that Eloy could not tolerate, and in mid-April of 1945, he sought out a parley with an old friend, 27-year-old Juan Fernandez Ayala. 27-year-old Juan Fernandez Ayala was an old companion of Aloy's and had joined up with the Republicans at the outbreak of hostilities some 9 years before. Over the next decade, Juan rose through the ranks, receiving multiple battlefield promotions until he found himself second in command of all regional resistance forces. It was under Juan's deputy leadership that Cantabria. Fuck me, I have no idea how to say this shit again. Dude, I am so fucking sick of looking up words. It was under Juan's deputy leadership that Cantabria saw a sharp uptick in political violence, so in an attempt to avert a wider conflict, Aloy reached out to his old friend to arrange a meeting. Then on Sunday, April 15th of 1945, Aloy walked deep into the Pico de Europa wilderness, far from any road or tract, to an old abandoned villa being slowly reclaimed by nature. There, Juan and a cadre of his guerrillas were waiting, and after some brief introductions, Aloy began to make his appeal. Franco's overthrow could not come quick enough, he explained, but an escalation of violence risked destroying the very place they called home. Juan and his comrades listened. We're only on page 3, bro. Holy fuck. Juan and his comrades listened as Aloy made his case, until suddenly they heard footsteps coming from outside. 2 days before the meeting was due to take place, Aloy had confided in a fellow park ranger that he was due to meet with the guerrillas. It's clear that Aloy trusted the man enough to share such sensitive information with him, so there's no doubt to believe that he was a government informant. But at the same time, there's no doubt that he would have been terrified that he too might be implicated in the plot, because the night before the meeting, Aloy's fellow park ranger betrayed him to the Spanish Civil Guard. The footsteps Juan and Aloy heard that afternoon didn't belong to more of the former's anti-fascist comrades, nor did they belong to some innocent hikers who just so happened to have stumbled upon the place. They belonged to a heavily armed troop of Spanish Civil Guard, all of whom were intent on slaughtering those present at the meeting. Yet the guerrillas weren't stupid. There was a reason they'd survived for 6 long years up in the forests and mountains, and when they chose the abandoned villa as their meeting place, they did so because of how easily defendable it was. This meant that when they realized that they'd been discovered by their sworn enemies, they weren't only capable of mounting a defense, they were practically spoiling for a fight. Despite being aware of their location, the guerrillas were able to rush into position and execute an almost perfect ambush on the approaching Civil Guard. 2 of the fascists were immediately dispatched, and the remaining Civil Guard were pinned down, picked off, and then forced into a retreat until reinforcements could arrive. The guerrillas used this lull in the fighting to flee the area, but before they did so, they fell upon the bodies of the dead and dying fascists, looting everything they possibly could before making their escape. Aloy ran all the way back to Sotres, where the victorious guerrillas melted back into the mountains, vanishing among a network of hidden encampments. Over the days that followed, Aloy waited anxiously for that fateful knock on his front door. The Spanish government had an extensive network of civilian informants, and seemed only a matter of time before someone would come for him. But when the knock came, and Aloy opened his front door, he discovered it was Juan on the doorstep. "Come with me," his old friend said. "We need to talk." In the aftermath of the firefight at the abandoned villa, the anti-fascist guerrillas carried away a great deal of loot from the slain civil guardsmen. Apparently, one of the fallen guardsmen was an officer, because among that loot was a small, folded piece of paper with the group's orders written on it. The note named Aloy's fellow park ranger, Alfonso Martinez, as their informant, and it's possible that it mentioned that another unnamed park ranger being the primary source of the information. It's reasonable to believe that in order to preserve the anonymity of a man he was so close to... Motherfucker. Why do you guys think it was like around that time of like World War II that so many sort of authoritarian governments broke out around the world, all like, well, I'm not, obviously it's kind of an ignorant question because I'm sure that there was probably a lot of like authoritarian governments leading up to that point, that eventually precipitated the change going forward post World War II, but like, I wonder why there were so many similar, or at least similarly described, authoritarian governments, both in the fascist and communist sense, or not post, but, around World War II. Which is weird. Judith, welcome back for 40 months. My goodness, that's a lot of months. Thank you, Judith. That's close to 4 years, right? Hope a great Halloween, thank you. World War I's power vacuum, poverty facilitated it, and technology advances allowed it to spread faster. I guess that makes sense, yeah, because in the power vacuum it allows complete authority to rule over people without much of like any sort of checks or balances. That's interesting. Just crazy that, well, I guess it's so weird though, because I feel like at the end of the day, an authoritarian government can sit there and like circle jerk you about like, oh, the rise of the power of the people, or the rise of whatever the fuck. But at the end of the day, they're gonna put you up against the wall and shoot you if you don't agree with them anyways, so it doesn't even fucking matter what label they have as long as they got the guns. It's reasonable to believe that in order to preserve the anonymity of a man he was no longer... Motherfucker. It's reasonable to believe that in order to preserve the anonymity of a man he was no doubt close to, Alfonso Martinez neglected to name Eloy in his report to the Spanish police. But seeing as the Pico de Europa's ranger team was so small in number, the guerrillas quickly deduced that the primary source was none other than Eloy Campillo Perez. On April 24th of 1945, Eloy was marched up into the mountains to a top-secret guerrilla headquarters and subjected to several rounds of intense interrogation. What happened afterwards is the subject of much speculation. What happened afterwards is the subject of much speculation, even today. But after a few months... Dude, I keep seeing words that... Man, I'm so annoyed. What happened afterwards is the subject of much speculation, even today. But a few months later, one captured guerrilla fighter claimed to know the definitive truth, referring to Juan Fernandez Ayala. Ayala? I don't even remember. Yeah. Referring to Juan Fernandez Ayala by his nickname Juanen, the captured guerrilla explained that he'd spotted Juan walking Eloy into the jungle. The pair had seemed relaxed, with Juan assuring his old friend that everything was going to be okay, and that he'd been forgiven for his accidental transgression. Moments later, a single gunshot was heard, and Juan returned alone. After learning of his death, Eloy's relatives contacted the Spanish police and pleaded with them to bring home his body. Joined by dozens of civilian volunteers, officers conducted extensive searches of the Pico de Europas, but... Picos. Joined by dozens of civilian volunteers, officers conducted extensive searches of the Pico de Europa. Picos. Fuck me, dude. Joined by dozens of civilian volunteers, officers conducted extensive searches of the Picos de Europas, but no trace of Eloy could be found. It was hoped that one day, Juan Fernandez Ayala might reveal the location of Eloy's body, but it was a secret that he would take to his grave. On April 24th of 1957, 12 years to the day since Eloy's execution, Juan was killed in a shootout with Spanish military police. In the end, Eloy's loved ones grew to accept that, dead or alive, he was never coming home. But in the words of Walt Whiteman... Wait, who's that? Did they literally just... Please don't tell me. Who's Walt Whiteman? Please don't tell me they reference fucking... Oh, it's a poem guy. I thought it was a dude from a show. I was like, no fucking way. American poet, essayist, and journalist. He is considered one of the most influential poets in American history. Nice. Alright. In the end, Eloy's loved ones grew to accept that, dead or alive, he was never coming home. But in the words of Walt Whitman, nothing is ever really lost. During the summer of 2018, a team of professional cavers was exploring a system of underground passageways on the eastern side of... Yeah, I was worried it was going to be a fucking... I really was worried it was going to be a Breaking Bad reference. I was like, we can't just break to a Breaking Bad reference out of nowhere. During the summer of 2018, a team of professional cavers was exploring a system of underground passageways on the eastern side of the Picos de Europa. Thanks in part to funding from the European Union, the Spanish government hired the group of highly experienced spelunkers to search for the remains of those who had gone missing as a result of both the Spanish Civil War as well as its prolonged and painful aftermath. Eloy Campillo Perez wasn't the only man to go missing in the area, so it's not like the search team was specifically looking for him. But there's no doubt that reports of his disappearance factored into the government's decision to dispatch cavers to the national park. Upon reaching the entrance of a subterranean cave known as the Torca de Topenoria, Jesus fucking Christ. It's like every 2 seconds I gotta fucking look up how to say some shit. Torca. Topenoria. Upon reaching the entrance of a subterranean cave known as the Torca de Topenoria, the group unpacked their things and prepared to descend almost 200 meters beneath the earth. The climb down took a great deal of care and precision, no small feat even for such experienced cavers, but once they successfully reached the bottom of the cavers began a careful search for any trace of human remains. They soon found some. Among a section of mud and debris, the cavers recovered bones later determined to be human. After extracting strands of DNA from the sections of skull and jawbone, police compared them to samples taken from Eloy's living relatives, and they were a perfect match. After having been missing for almost a quarter of a century, Eloy Campillo Perez had finally been found. When news of the match reached Eloy's 75-year-old daughter, Mercedes, she defied her advanced years to hike all the way out to her father's final resting place to pay her last respects. Her loved ones implored her to wait even further. Her loved ones implored her to await further developments at home, but Mercedes insisted on camping near the cave system's entrance while the subsequent investigations unfolded. She was present when investigators determined that Eloy had been executed by a single shot from a 9mm Astra 400 handgun, the same variety of pistol found in Juan Fernandez Ayala's... Jesus fuck. The same variety of pistol found in Juan Fernandez Ayala's possession following his sudden and violent death. Throughout the remainder of 2018 summer, Spanish authorities continued to reconstruct Eloy's skeleton, and it was through this process that they made a chilling discovery. Eloy's weren't the only one. Eloy's weren't the only ones set to... Eloy's weren't the only set of human remains that had been left down to rot there in the dark. As investigators began working to reconstruct the second of the two skeletons, several details became evident. The first was that the bones belonged to a female, aged 10 to 14 years old when she'd expired. The second was that the girl hadn't died on the same night as Eloy, but rather between 5 and 15 years later. After analyzing the girl's bones to determine the date of her death, investigators determined that the girl was most probably the child of local shepherds who had accidentally fallen into the cave while working or playing near its entrance. Yet this claim was quickly dismissed by accomplished forensic anthropologist Dr. Fernando Cerullia. Dr. Cerullia was famous in Argentina for having helped identify almost 100 nameless Argentine soldiers who died in their disastrous attempted takeover of the British Falkland Islands. Then, upon hearing of the Cantabrian Jane Doe, she was generous enough to offer her services to the Spanish government. However, upon performing her own analysis of the girl's remains, Dr. Cerullia declared that the girl could not have been a rural shepherd. Her bone structure suggested that rather than a diet consisting mostly of corn, which would have marked her out as coming from a low-income rural family, the girl had subsisted on high amounts of low-fat animal protein, meaning she was probably raised on the much more populous Cantabrian coast. Dr. Cerullia further analyzed the girl's DNA to create a physical depiction of what she might have looked like. She was said to have been around 4 foot 8 inches tall, with green eyes and dark brown hair. This description was then disseminated all over Cantabria. Oh my fucking crap. Cantabria. Yeah, there's a lot of errors, a lot of frustration. Probably over frustration on my part. But I don't know, I'm a crazy mother effer, man. I'm a freaking bamf. I'm a bad... What's the A stand for? I'm a bad anal... Something to do with the butt. Bad anal mother fricker. This prescription was disseminated. This description was then disseminated all over Cantabria, in the hopes that it might jog someone's memory, but sadly, no one came forward with any pertinent information. Perhaps the closest investigators came to a definitive break in the case was after learning of a little-known fact regarding the Picos de Europas. Following General Franco's rise to power, many innocent Spaniards simply disappeared, but not all were victims of the fascist secret police, and not all joined the guerrillas in the mountain refuges. In the mountain refuge? You know a trick to roll R's? Pretend you have a lisp. Refugees. I don't know, dude. Bad anal fissure. He's one bad anal fissure, that one. But not all were victims of the fascist secret police, and not all joined the guerrillas in the mountain refuge. Refuge? I can't tell. I don't care. I'm over this story. But not all were victims of the fascist secret police, and not all joined the guerrillas in the mountain refuge. Some wished to go off the grid, so to speak, and live out their lives in privacy among Spain's remote, mine-riddled mountains. Some of these people would have been wanted by Franco's fascists for perceived disloyalties to the regime, while others simply didn't want to live under a dictatorship but couldn't bear to abandon the country of their birth. Most found work as undocumented miners and affiliated mining workers, and built their own ramshackle housing hidden among the pine-blanketed hillsides. Some would marry, others would have children, but all would remain utterly secluded from the world around them. Therefore, it stands to reason that if one of their community went missing, they would do their utmost to avoid the involvement of outside authorities. A police investigation might ooga booga the ooga looga. Can I get a hiya? A police investigation might uncover far more than just the truth, and for many of Spain's Republican fugitives, such a possibility could not be entertained. Given that less than 20% of the girl's skeleton had been recovered, investigators had been able to determine the exact cause of her death. In fact, they have been unable. Given that less than 20% of the girl's skeleton had been recovered, investigators had been unable to determine the exact cause of her death. In fact, some attempted analysis had preceded some very strange observations. For example, there's no doubt that the girl fell almost directly down the cave's 180-meter-long entrance shaft before smashing into its rocky floor. Yet only a few of the recovered bones show any signs of high-energy impact damage. The girl's femur and jaw were completely intact, with only small sections of her cranium to display any sort of significant damage. Oh my god. I'm gonna die. I don't know why the fuck we're talking about a little girl found in the cave next to this dude. Like, I don't think it has anything to do with anything. Maybe it does. Maybe I'm just not paying attention. And God rest her soul, her little dead soul. But I just don't care. Do you ever think to yourself, like, why do we care about anything? You know? If there's 7 billion people on Earth right now, you can't care about all of them. Whenever the news comes on, they say, like, Jim's dead, or like, Billy McBiddlestein's dead, and, you know, 100,000 of his friends are all dead. Like, you know, you can sit there and solemnly go, like, oh boy, unfortunate. But like, what's the fucking point? It's not like your thought process of something being unfortunate or sad is gonna bring them back or even fucking matters. In fact, you espousing like an opinion of feeling sad about something is almost worse for the situation, because you didn't even know any of the people, so you don't even have any ability to like really speculate on their existence at all. I mean, sure, they deserve life for sure, but it's just like, it's impossible to fucking like sit there and even care about your family half the time, let alone the rest of the fucking world. Yet for some reason, every time you're inundated with some new chaos, like for some reason, it's our responsibility as like basic citizens to have the most generic fucking boring ass conversations of solemn sadness between each other. And if we don't demonstrate some sort of, upset presentation about the situation for, at least a week or so, suddenly you're some sort of heartless monster or you're not very good. And it's like, bitch, shut the fuck up. You don't know anything. You didn't care about the USS Liberty when it got fucking blown up, you know what I mean, 100 years ago. It's like, why are things suddenly important because they happen like right now, and they're not, and then for whatever reason after a month then you can make jokes about it. It's all so silly. All right, anyways. Too lethargic to feel anything. Exactly. Like, why? But for some reason, like, there's so many people that expect you to feel things and to think a certain way and to like, but they don't expect you to feel it all the time, just for like a small window between 3 to 5 days, so that you don't seem heartless or something like that. And it's like, if you don't feel it all the time, don't feel it at all. You know what I mean? It's just so pointless to sit there and pretend like you give a shit about the current thing, when in reality you're just sitting there like, giving my thoughts and prayers and pointless platitudes towards a situation that like I really don't and can't even care about. And in many ways it's just more disrespectful to sit there and act like I know anything about it. I don't know, it's just stupid. But ooga booga wooga womp. Anyways, given that less than 20% of the girl's skeleton, why do we care about this girl's skeleton? Are we gonna make like a Halloween decoration out of it? Like, what's the point? Given that less than 20% of the girl's skeleton had been recovered and investigated. I'm out of breath. I don't have any oxygen in my heart anymore. Given that less than 20% of the girl's skeleton had been recovered, investigators had been unable to determine the exact cause of her death. In fact, some attempted analysis had preceded some very strange observations. Wait, what is this? In fact, some attempts at analysis have preceded some very strange observations. For example, there's no doubt that the girl fell almost directly down the cave's 180-meter-long entrance shaft before smashing into its rocky floor. Yet only after a few of the recovered bones, Yet only a few of the recovered bones show any signs of high-energy impact damage. The girl's femur and jaw were completely intact, with only small sections of her cranium said to display any significant damage. This has led some to theorize that the girl was murdered via a blow to the head, then somehow placed down in the cave in a way which precludes any kind of prolonged fall. Essentially, there are two competing primary theories here. Number one, the girl's death was entirely accidental and by some physical anomaly only fractured her skull after a near 200-meter fall into a hard, rocky surface. Or number two, the girl was murdered by someone with so much twisted affection for her that he chose to gently lower her body into the cave in a sick parody of a funeral. As of June of the year 2022, the identity of the Toponoria Jane Doe remains a mystery, and while Spanish police have stated that investigation is still open, the chances of further developments is highly improbable. Her DNA has since been uploaded to the Phoenix's I'm so confused with this. What does this Jane Doe have to do with any of the historical bullshit that we were talking about with the Spanish Civil War? I'm so confused. Her DNA has since been uploaded to the Phoenix database, a project launched by the Civil Guard in 1999 to help solve cold cases, as well as to identify John and Jane Does. Eloy Campillo's remains were eventually returned to his family, and he was laid to rest in the ancient cemetery of the very town he'd given his life to protect. His daughter stated that the Topanoria Jane Doe is also buried in that same cemetery right next to her father's grave. After they'd been so many years down there together in the cave, she said, "It wouldn't be fair to separate them now." I guess. I don't think it fucking matters, but I also don't know what it has to do with each other, if they're from, like, different time periods. I mean, I guess that is kind of significant, like, your body was hidden there, and then if she was murdered, her body was hidden there. So it's kind of, I guess, creating the parallel of, like, two killers saw this cave as a useful hiding spot for bodies. I'm not really sure. Do you find it difficult to find new stories for videos? Also, do you often have to sift through noticeably fake stories? Often find the ones that make it to your videos, enjoy your content? Hey, thank you. Yeah, it can be hard, for sure. I have somebody for, like, the theme stuff, the theme videos, to kind of go through and search via keyword on the email. And yeah, sometimes it can be kind of difficult to get stuff. And sometimes you kind of have to fill in the void with, like, true crime. Which true crime can be fun and interesting. Why does a duck have feathers? To cover its butt quack. All right. Well, we made it, my friends. We made it. We're so back. We're so done. I just gotta read this outro. If you guys wanna think of something funny for me to say at the end. Hey friends, thanks for listening. Click that notification bell to be alerted of all future narrations. I release new videos every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 7 p.m. EST, and there are super fun live streams on Sundays, Tuesdays, and Thursday nights. I'd love to see you there. If you got a story, be sure to submit them to my subreddit r/Let'sReadOfficial, or send it over email, and you might even hear your story featured on the next video. And if you want to support me even more, grab early access to all future narrations and bonus content over on Patreon, or click that big join button to hear about the extra perks offered for the channel. And check out the Let's Read podcast, where you can hear all of these stories in big compilations and save huge on data, located anywhere you listen to podcasts. All links in the description below. Thanks so much, friends. And remember, all you need is a baba, a gucker, and a tablet. That's a good idea. Oh, shit, we did it, baby. Get my tablet ready. This is so fucking fun. Oh, man. I'm actually kind of terrified about that, though. Like, at 3 years old, I'm sure a lot of kids have already gone through it, but just, like, at 3 years old, already developing that, like, sort of... Because you know how, like, you don't have your phone for... You guys might not experience this, but sometimes I feel it, and I'm comfortable acknowledging that I experience it. Sometimes when I don't have my phone near me, there is a certain, like, underlying sense of anxiety that you don't even realize where it stems from, but it stems from that neurotic need to just, like, check for your notifications, check your bullshit, check the blah, 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 click this, that, constant stimulus. You know, it just doesn't stop, and it worries me to think that as soon as a kid essentially exists, they're placed in front of, like, a blue screen, an electronic screen that sort of in some ways kind of like takes them out of reality, place them in like a weird, strange, bent over posture where they just sit there and like interact with a virtual existence that also is constantly stimulating their dopamine receptors, almost like feeding into what, you know, most people would consider as the modern day disease of ADHD, that like sort of dysregulation of dopamine. And to like have that as a child constantly, and like just know at 3 years old that the you know, the things that give you the most comfort is something to suck on, a drink, and a fucking tablet. It all makes sense, but it's also like, I don't know, it's just terrifying. But also kind of fucking cool. I wish I had a fucking tablet when I was little. Alright, anyways, love you guys, appreciate you. Thanks for being cool and chill and fun. Sorry about being negative earlier, but I'm back. I'm back, baby. And I'll be streaming again on Tuesday. Hope to see you guys there. Hopefully I can get started a little bit earlier. My sleep schedule was a little fucked, you know, and sorry you got to deal with it, but hopefully I'll keep you posted when I go live over on my Twitter at Let's Read Creepy. Follow me on Instagram at letsread.official. And yeah, this video will be up ready to rock and roll over on Patreon. First thing, $1 a month over there. You can do a free trial. And then up on YouTube, 7 p.m., same time, same place. I don't have social media other than YouTube, I guess. I want to raise my kids away from EMF and crazy tech. I was in 8th grade when MySpace became a thing. My trainer wants Apple goggles. Hey, yeah, if you can be the parent that keeps your kids away from tech and social media, you are sparing them, one, probably from like the ability to not pay attention, you know, or basically giving them the ability to be able to pay attention, and then also sparing them from like the depression that also comes along with constantly comparing yourself to people on social media. So I think just keeping phones and tablets and shit like to a super limited thing, you know, you're not going to be like Tiger Mom or, you know, Hitler Dad or whatever the fuck. You know, you're not bad. You're looking out for their greater good and setting a foundation that's just not reliant upon tippity-tapping on a fucking screen. Steve Jobs. You know, Steve Jobs honestly might be rotting in hell for creating an iPhone. And if I found out that was true, I really wouldn't disagree with whatever higher power made that decision. Alright. You guys rock. I'll catch you later. See you at the next stream. Sleep well. Be well. Keep working hard. Keep ripping rats to shreds. Stick to your grind. And we will make it, baby. We'll make it.